Chapter 435. The sky was dark, and the summer night came especially late. A gentle breeze blew around the backwater lake, dispelling some of the dampness. Sigh, my family came to see you one by one without saying anything. Lu Qing held Yinjika's hand, lamenting about what had happened in the morning. Especially Lu Yanwei, his unreliable brother, whose excuses were so ridiculous that he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, Lu Qing still had some self-awareness, so he didn't stay for dinner even though Lu Qing had warmly invited him. However, with them as a contrast, Lu Qing's parents didn't seem so strange to Yinjika. When there were only 4 of them left, she obviously relaxed a lot. She took the initiative to praise some of the dishes, which made Lu Qing's mother so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. After a sumptuous lunch, Lu Qing led Yinjika into his room. They shared their schoolmates' album, posters of the mighty ones, and detective novels that they had bought before. They spent the whole afternoon happily together. However, Lu Jisheng and Qi Feng were still at home, and they would knock on the door from time to deliver fruits, so they didn't dare to be intimate. After dinner, Lu Jisheng picked up Lu Debong and his wife. They had been worried about not having a granddaughter-in-law, but now they were very satisfied with Yinjika. Walking slowly, Yinjika relaxed her eyebrows and completely shed her previous restraint. She smiled softly and said, "It's okay. It's okay. I can understand. Really? If my brother brings his girlfriend home, I'll book a plane ticket and rush over to take a look." She was holding 2 red envelopes, one thick and one thin, from Qi Feng and Lu Debong respectively. "Your brother brings his girlfriend home." Lu Qing couldn't help laughing. It's so surreal. He couldn't imagine how his brother-in-law would treat his girlfriend if he had a girlfriend. "I think so too." Yinjika didn't defend her cousin Lin Quebec. Instead, she nodded seriously. Lu Qing glanced at Yinjika's pink bag and red envelope and said, "Why don't you put it in? It's a burden to hold it in your hand." "I like to hold it. What's wrong with that?" Yinjika answered briskly, holding the red envelope and shaking it proudly. Okay. As long as you like it." After chatting for a while, Lu Qing remembered something and asked, "Ku, when are we going to your grandpa's house?" "Well, maybe not." Yinjika tilted her head and looked at him seriously. "Why?" Lu Qing was confused. Yinjika burst into laughter, revealing her dimples. "Because my grandparents missed me so much that they decided to come to Xioshan and live there for a while." At this point, she pursed her lips and looked up. "There may be other relatives coming over these few days. When they leave, I'll take you home to meet grandfather and grandmother. Otherwise, you'll feel awkward facing a large group of people all of a sudden." "That's good." Lu Qing nodded in agreement. At this time, they walked to the entrance of the villa community. Yinjika waved her hand and said, "Cheng, I'm going in. Say hello to Empress Dowager and father-in-law for me." Lu Qing responded with a smile. After taking 2 steps, Yinjika suddenly turned around. She smiled shyly and said, "Uncle, Auntie, they're nice people. I feel like we're family." After that, she shook the red packet in her hand and walked briskly past the entrance. "We're a family now, silly Ku." Lu Qing chuckled as he watched her leave. In the living room of the Lu family, Qi Feng was wiping the tea table. She glanced at Lu Jisheng, who was watching the news attentively, and said, "That girl Zhika is quite delicate and well-mannered. She seems to have a good family education. Yeah, she's not a naughty girl." "Good." Lu Jisheng sipped his tea and nodded. While the old couple was talking, Lu Qing pushed open the door and walked in. "You're back so soon?" Qi Feng blurted out in surprise. "Not so soon. I've already sent Ka home." Lu Qing answered blankly. "Why can't you be more considerate? Why did you only send her home when you sent her home? You should take her shopping. It's just a walk. Boys should take the initiative." Qi Feng didn't dare to comment on other things, but she did watch a lot of TV series. She deeply felt that her son had no romantic cells, and looked as if she expected better from him. "I've already taken a walk by the lake. If it weren't for Empress Dowager waiting for me, I'd definitely take Ko for a date. It'll take at least 2 or 3 hours to get back." Lu Qing complained and changed the topic. "Ko just told me in private that she feels that you two are really good friends." I'm still not a good host." Qifeng smiled and said modestly. Lu Jisheng picked up his teacup and took a sip. He couldn't hide his smile. Lu Qing thought of something and took the initiative to bring it up. Dad, Mom, my master wants me to learn more about the kung fu of other countries and sections. I might be going to the United States more often in the future, so I'll have to stay for a long time each time. Let me teach you how to video chat. Okay. Qifeng was stunned and asked worriedly. What about Chika? It's not a good idea to be apart all the time. Lu Qing smiled. Mom, don't worry. Uncle Yan and the others have arranged a joint training program for Ku to study in America. That's good, that's good. Qifeng heaved a sigh of relief. You're going home for the holidays, right? Of course. Lu Qing smiled brightly. He took his parents' phones and started the teaching activity. At 8:30, after Lu Jisheng and Qifeng had barely grasped how to video chat, he went back to his room and turned on his computer to do what he had done for the past few months. While waiting for the computer to start, he took out his phone and replied to Yenjika's messages, and browsed through dozens of recent messages in various groups. Among them, in the family group, Mashi sent an emoji of drinking water. Sister-in-law, you're so beautiful. You're much prettier than on TV. Lu Yanwei didn't say anything but sent a thumbs-up emoji. Seeing that these messages were from a few hours ago, Lu Qing didn't respond and clicked on an emoji of passing by quickly. His computer was fully booted up. He opened the browser and began to browse various niche cultivation forums and large shopping websites. Ever since his 9 words formula became famous, items related to the Lin Bing Do Sha All-Array Advance became a hot topic on the internet. Many people posted things like Ancient 9 Words Picture, Golden Stone 9 Seals, Incomplete Secret Art, Ancestral 9 Words Picture Atlas, and so on. They would cheat and cheat as much as they could. After all, even sects like the Shangqing sect and Daxing Temple could not guarantee that their disciples would be able to practice something by looking at the picture. What? You said you bought my ancestral secret method, but didn't practice the secret method? Boy, you're not smart enough. Here, let me introduce you another one, suitable for people with low intelligence. Is that not enough? Look at yourself in the mirror. Don't practice martial arts if you're ugly. In this situation where non-strong martial artists couldn't distinguish the real from the fake, many people thought that they had good taste and good luck. They believed that they could definitely distinguish the real from the fake and find the real secret method. Then they would have an adventure and become the protagonist, walking to the peak of life. Lu Qing relied on his ability to return to the origin of cultivation through the remaining essence and charm of the 9 words formula. He also joined the ranks of the gold rush, hoping to find something useful. To him, with the breakthrough some time ago, the inhuman stage wasn't so far away. However, how long it would take for him to step into it was another matter. Although he had set a target of 4 months, he only had a certain degree of confidence, and did not dare to say that he was certain. Therefore, in addition to the daily training of his will and martial arts, he planned to find some catalysts and primers in order to accumulate enough momentum. Within 3 to 4 months, he would be able to push past the threshold of the inhuman stage like a flood breaking through a dam. Currently, the most promising primer and catalyst was undoubtedly the remaining 9 words formula. Not only would it help him, but it also had the possibility of healing his master's injury and Ku's body. This was his main goal for this semester. In the past few months, Lu Qing had actually found many items that he himself found hard to distinguish. However, he didn't waste time to verify them himself. He directly passed the clues to Geezer Shi, and asked him to pass them to the divine enchanter of Sin Flame and other seniors. Hey, if it's a liar, the military daddy will strip you of your underwear. He thought to himself. However, from the feedback from the military, they were all fake. Of course, Lu Qing wouldn't pass all the clues to the military. This was because a few of the items did have some remaining essence and charm. He could directly confirm that they were real and wanted to spend a few hundred yuan to pick them up. However, up until now, these few items were either too incomplete or had wrong charm. They hadn't given him a new 9 words formula yet. Qing, did I eat too much during lunch and dinner? Yenjika, who had just calmed down after taking a shower, sent a message to Lu Qing via days when she thought of this. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Hand touching chin expression, he said, "No, I'll be the comparison." While chatting, he glanced at the computer screen from the corner of his eye. Suddenly he was stunned. On the current page was a brocade handkerchief with the word, "Do" engraved on it. It vaguely gave a feeling of fighting against the heavens and the earth. Lu Qing sat up straight, moved the mouse, and clicked on the dialog box with the seller. "Where did this thing come from?" he asked bluntly. The seller was called Never Miss a Chance. He replied enthusiastically, "Dear, this was passed down from my ancestors. Do you want to buy it? I've been having a hard time recently, so I'll give you a discount. 999 yuan is yours." It's the same style as Lu Cheng's. Dear, the pronunciation of the word do. I mean, if you want to cheat, at least make it more real. A handkerchief needs to be old. You just bought it not long ago, right? Lu Qing said with a sneer. Dear, we're just trying to make a living. You don't have to do this. Never Miss a Chance's attitude suddenly turned cold. Also, where did you copy it from? Were you cheated too? Lu Cheng's expression was solemn, but his tone sounded like he was gossiping. Chapter 436. Never Misjudge seemed to have been exposed. Snorting through nostrils expression said, "Damn it. That guy said that the dough character on the wine pot could definitely be passed off as genuine. In the end, after selling it for a month, it was exposed 10 times. 10 times. I'm so F***king blind." Lu Qing replied with a laughing expression. "What wine pot? Send it to me." Never Miss a Mistake paused for a few seconds and sent a photo to Lu Qing. In the photo was an ancient purple gold wine pot about the size of a palm. On the side of the pot was engraved the word dough character, which gave off an explosive and unyielding feeling. It was as if one could soar into the sky and wreak havoc in heaven after drinking 2 mouthfuls of the wine. It's quite stylish. The workmanship is exquisite. Lu Qing complimented and casually added, "I quite like your wine pot. It's so cool. Why don't you sell it to me?" "Sell it to you? How can I get a handkerchief with the dough character if I sell it to you? You're ruining my business, dear." Never Miss a Mistake replied with a disdain expression. The national competition ended a few months ago. The popularity of the 9 syllables has long since passed. Your handkerchief with the dough character is getting worse and worse, right? Hurry up and sell it. Make as much money as you can. Besides, I don't believe that you don't have any handkerchiefs in stock. Lu Qing had a glib tongue. That makes sense. Never Miss a Mistake replied after a moment of silence. 1,200 yuan. Take the wine pot. 1,200 yuan? Are you kidding me? I can't give you more than 100 yuan. Lu Qing followed Coach Yan's instructions and tried to bargain. That's an insulting bargain. Dear, the cost of my handkerchief is more than 100 yuan. Let's be friends. It's 380 yuan, including shipping. Dear. Never Miss a Mistake looked like he was selling at a loss. Lu Qing thought for a while and said hesitantly, "Fine. You hang it up and I'll bid for it. Let's go through other channels. If I hang the wine pot up, won't it expose that I'm selling fake goods?" Never Miss a Mistake suggested. Fine. Lu Qing didn't seem to care. After the deal, when he gave Lu Qing the address at the end, he considered that he could be considered a celebrity. He didn't leave the name Lu Qing and used Qifeng instead. After he was done, he sent a photo of the wine pot to Yan Zhika and sent a snickering emoji. Look at this. Ah, the fighting formula. It feels like the fighting formula. Yan Zhika sent a dog-eyed expression. She had read the notes of the Shushan study's reverse creation of the 9 words formula. Although the fighting formula's charm had been identified as wrong by Lu Qing, it should be close enough. Yeah, I could tell at a glance. Lu Qing smiled proudly. Amazing. You are indeed my Qing. You got it. Yan Zheka was not stingy with her praise and asked happily. That's right. Even if I can't comprehend anything from it, there should be some clues hidden in it. Also, look at this wine pot. It's so well made and has an ancient charm. It's the type that my master likes. I can give it to him as a backup. Wow, it's so rare to see you care so much about Coach Shi. Yan Zhika sent an emoji with her eyes wide open. Lu Qing replied with a dumbstruck expression. What do you mean by rare? I've always respected my master. TSK. Why do I remember that you always slandered him? Yenjika sent an emoji with her eyes rolling. It's called slandering but remembering. Lu Qing replied with a serious face emoji. Is that so? Yenjika sent an obedient emoji. How much did you spend on this wine pot? $380. Lu Qing sent an emoji with a covering face emoji. In a rented house in a city in a province. Never Miss a Mistake stretched his back and hummed a little tune proudly. In front of him was the purple gold wine pot that gave off a heaven-defying vibe. He stood up and pulled open a black cloth covering a box beside him. Inside, there were dozens of wine pots of the same style neatly stacked. However, they lacked that indescribable vibe. These were all replicas that he found in a factory. The cost was quite low. Haha, you're the kind of person who wants to trick my flagon. Never Miss a Mistake shook his head and laughed. Usually, the dough formula handkerchief was enough to deal with people who were not observant and knowledgeable. When it came to people who could see the flaws and uniqueness, he would pretend that he knew nothing and let them deceive the wine pot and sell it for a good price. For most people, who would expect a second scam after the first one, most of them would be happy that they had successfully deceived others and picked up a bargain. Moreover, such people were more conceited. If they fell for a few hundred yuan, they would definitely not want to make it public. At most, they would scold themselves and deny it. As for the temptation of treasures, Never Miss a Mistake wasn't worried. When he found this wine pot, he thought it was really related to the dough formula. He tried to use it to please a dance stage martial artist. However, the martial artist said that it didn't contain any charm and couldn't be visualized. Besides looking good, it had no other value. Those who were deceived would understand after looking at the photo, who would go to another province for a few hundred yuan. No matter how crafty you are, you can't escape from my grasp. Never Miss a Mistake took out a batch version of the purple gold wine pot and put it in the package. He started to fill in the express delivery form. Xiaoshan. The next day, Lu Qing finished his training and returned home from Gushan Martial Arts School. His phone rang. The express delivery had arrived. He took the package and entered his room. He opened it and raised his eyebrows. He was both angry and amused at the same time. He logged onto the website and found Never Miss a Mistake. He said bluntly, "You must have sent the wrong one." "Of course not. Look at the photo. Isn't it exactly the same?" Never Miss a Mistake was experienced and calm. It doesn't have the explosive and unyielding feeling in the photo. Lu Qing pointed out the key point. Never Miss a Mistake was surprised. This is the effect of a photo. Do you know what Photoshop and retouching are? Don't tell me you don't even know how to use Photoshop? Look, I have another one. This one is in black and white. Doesn't it have a quiet and ancient feel? Anyway, you can say whatever you want and file a complaint. I'm not afraid. I'll call the police. Lu Qing replied without anger. Seeing these words, Never Miss a Mistake immediately relaxed. The bigger the threat, the less likely the other party would follow. It was like a fight between gangsters. You had to leave some harsh words at the end. The police wouldn't file a case for a few hundred yuan. Haha, go ahead. Never Miss a Mistake picked up the cup and drank a mouthful of water. Lu Qing copied the link to his website and clicked on a person named Rapid March on QQ. He sent a message. This person is very likely to have clues about the fighting formula. He used to pass clues to the military through his master, which annoyed Geysershire. Geysershire directly gave him a contact instead of being a middleman. Got it. Rapid March's reply was concise and comprehensive. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Never Miss a Mistake was half asleep when he suddenly heard a series of fierce knocking on the door. Who is it? He turned over and sat up, shouting out loud. Checking your water meter. Someone outside answered. Has it been a month? Never Miss a Mistake put on a sweatshirt and shorts, walked to the door in confusion and opened it. Clang. As soon as the door opened, 2 strong men rushed in. One grabbed Never Miss a Mistake by the waist and tripped his legs, and the other grabbed his shoulders and elbows. Never miss a mistake was immediately pinned to the ground. What are you doing? Never let me see you wrong, I shouted in fright. Then he saw several shiny black pistols pointed at him, and 2 police badges were next to them. I'm just selling a fake. Never miss a mistake was stunned for a moment, and then defended himself with grievance. Tears were about to fall. That's the whole thing. Lu Cheng sat on the chair and looked at Yin Jika, who was sitting on the edge of the bed and flipping through the bulk purple gold flagon. In other words, you were mentally prepared to receive a fake from the beginning? The girl looked up thoughtfully. Then why didn't you just hand it over to the military without fear? You want to take advantage of the situation with your own ability? Today was a rare cool day in early July. She wore a delicate and ladylike round-necked shirt. Something like that. Lu Cheng smiled vaguely. Yin Jika put down the flagon and rolled her eyes at him. You pulled me here just to see this fake? I even said that I would take you to buy 2 sets of clothes. My grandparents prefer the gentle and scholarly type. That's not urgent. Other relatives are still here, aren't they? Lu Cheng stood up and smiled. Besides, what do you mean just to see this? Didn't you say it before? It doesn't matter what 2 people see together. What matters is the feeling of being together. While speaking, he walked to the door, closed it with a click, and locked it from the inside. Yin Jika blinked her clear eyes, and didn't realize what was going on for a moment. Lu Cheng walked to the window again, looked at the dazed little fairy, and laughed in a low voice. My mom escorted Qi Yunfei back to Ningxue, and won't come back today. My dad is working overtime and won't be home until 7 or 8 o'clock. With a swish, the curtains were drawn, covering the light in the room, making everything dim and dancing with light and shadow. You. The clear female voice came to an abrupt end. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in the dimly lit room, a jade-white arm was draped over Lu Cheng's body, forming a sharp contrast with the cascading black hair. The whole room was filled with the silent beauty of dancing. Lu Cheng glanced at the sleeping Yin Jika, picked up his phone from the pillow with his left hand, and looked at the messages. Rapid March said an hour ago. The flagon doesn't have the charm of the fighting formula. It should be made by a very skilled craftsman without any martial arts. It's no more than 30 years old. Judging from the overall feeling, he most likely made it according to the original inscription. Let's trace the origin of this flagon immediately. Chapter 437. At 5:30 p.m. Yin Jika woke up from her nap and put on Lu Cheng's t-shirt and shorts. She went to the bathroom to take a shower, and then went back to her room to change into her own clothes. It's all your fault. She pointed at the crumpled round-neck shirt on her body and looked at Lu Cheng reproachfully. Hurry up and get the iron. Otherwise, how could she meet people and go home? My iron broke 2 days ago. Lu Cheng paused for a moment and then smiled. But it doesn't matter. Watch me. What? Yin Jika stared blankly at her husband with a confused expression. Lu Cheng smiled and reached out his right hand, which was covered with a layer of white frost. Then the frost melted and the steam rose. He held the girl's clothes with his left hand, and put his right hand down slowly. All the abnormal wrinkles and distortions were smoothed out. Yin Jika's eyes gradually showed a look of realization. She couldn't help but praise. Cheng, your supernatural ability is getting more and more practical. You even developed this function. It's mainly because I can better control my supernatural ability of ice and fire after sensing my root pulp. Lu Cheng answered humbly. It's all thanks to you, Coach Yan. Recently, he had been reading more about cultivation. He often joked with Yin Jika about the changes in his mentality, mood, and will after becoming a real man and getting married. He called it double cultivation success. Yin Jika pursed her lips and turned her head, smiling. Then she looked back at Lu Cheng suspiciously. Why do I feel like you have another meaning when you praise me like this? So you don't care about the fake goods because you want to trick me? No. At first, I just didn't want to trouble the military, even though they are also collecting the 9 words formula. Later on, I received a fake and thought it was pretty funny, so I wanted to share it with you and let you have a look. Now that I've taken a look at it, I feel like I have a lot of free time and can do something. Lu Cheng chuckled and explained. We haven't been intimate for many days. What if I'm not very willing to do it today? Yenjika played with her long hair and narrowed her eyes. Luqing smiled and spread his hands. Then we can browse the forums in Weibo and talk about interesting topics. We can go out and buy some clothes at 4 or 5 o'clock. We have a lot of things to do together. Hindsight. Yenjika raised her chin slightly, and the corners of her eyes were slightly raised. She stood up and walked to the door. Suddenly, she glanced at Luqing, annoyed and amused. Look at you. Why did you lock the door? You made yourself look like a bad guy. Aren't I guarding against accidents? What if my mom didn't stay at my aunt's house today? What if my dad got off work early and opened my door to see if I was in? Wouldn't that be super awkward? If it wasn't for the absolute reaction caused by the danger, I wouldn't have the mood to pay attention to the situation outside and listen for the sound of footsteps or keys. Luqing said with a smile. But you found the door locked from the inside. Isn't that embarrassing? Yenjika tilted her head in confusion. Think about it. In other people's eyes, we are already a couple who have met each other's parents. It's normal for us to lock the door and make out occasionally. It would be weird if we didn't. Anyway, they don't know to what extent. Luqing reached out and helped her tidy up a few strands of messy hair behind her head. You seem to have a lot of experience. Yenjika looked at Luqing up and down with her sparkling eyes. Haha, it's all from other people's experience and lessons on the internet. You have to be good at learning. Luqing chuckled. Well, little Ming's embarrassing anecdotes. 2 days later, the military still hadn't found out the origin of the wine pot. Luqing put on the gold-rimmed glasses he bought for the refined style, changed into matching clothes and carried the gifts. Together with Yenjika, he entered the villa community by the backwater lake and walked to the Yan's house. Compared to last summer when he sneaked in with fear, this time he was so open and aboveboard. Later, just answer whatever Grandpa and Grandma ask you. Don't talk about other things. They have been head teachers for many years. They hate the kind of boys who don't talk seriously. Before entering the house, Yenjika specially reminded him again. Luqing didn't feel any pressure when facing the 2 generations of elders. He laughed and pointed at himself. Anyway, I got into Songqing University with my own ability. Grandpa and Grandma will definitely like me. In high school, he was always in the top 5 of his class, often the top 3, and sometimes the top 20 or top 10 students in his grade. He even exceeded his standards in the college entrance examination. A real man doesn't talk about his past achievements. Yenjika chuckled and pushed the door open. In the spacious living room, Yen Kai, who was on vacation today, was talking with Yen Jihua and Gaofun. When he heard the digital music, he stood up and greeted his daughter and son-in-law. Ji Mingyu had an important business meeting today, so she wouldn't come back until dinner time. Lu, you're here. Yen Kai was able to speak to the bastard who had stolen his precious cabbage in a more peaceful and friendly manner. Hello, uncle. Luqing changed into slippers. Dad, why are you here? Cheng is not a guest. Yenjika said to lighten the atmosphere. Then she took her husband's hand and led him to the sofa. She said in a sweet voice, Grandpa, Grandma, Luqing brought you something. Hello, Grandpa and Grandma. Luqing handed over the tea leaves, original proof wine and other gifts. Haha, you're too polite. Lu, sit. Yen Jihua looked at Luqing, took the bag and put it aside. After they sat down, he asked with a smile, Lu, you're also in Xioshan No. 1 middle school? Why do all parents like to ask this? Luqing complained in his mind and answered with a smile. Yes, I'm in the class next to Kuz. Every time the grade ranking is announced, I'll hear her name. Cheng was also in the top 10 or 20 of the grade. I know such a person. Yenjika took the initiative to help him show off. But she had only heard about it and forgot about it. That time in the martial arts club, she didn't think the name Luqing sounded familiar. Not bad. Yen Jihua and Gaofun looked at each other and nodded with a smile. Then Lu was admitted to Songqing University, so he and Ku were classmates. Yen Kai added. In fact, this was something that Yenjika had mentioned in private. But in order to have something to talk about and not be so awkward, the elders started to talk about it. Yen Jihua was very scholarly. Hearing this, he asked with confusion and curiosity. Then Xiaolu, why did you decide to switch to martial arts? It was a coincidence. After I found out that Ke had signed up for the martial arts club, I signed up on impulse. After a few times, I started to feel that I have some talent, and I can't waste it like this. Lu Cheng told them the truth, even telling them that he had joined the martial arts club to pursue someone's granddaughter. He didn't need to mention this in front of his parents, but in front of the Yan family, they would feel his sincerity and importance to Ke. I didn't know that. Yan Kai laughed with mixed feelings. Yan Jihua laughed heartily and joked. Lu, you're scheming, aren't you? The topic was opened, and the family started to talk about the couple's past. Yan Zhika blushed from time to time. Lu, Ke is going to study abroad. I heard from her that you plan to go there often and have martial arts exchanges? Gaofen was concerned about the most practical issue. Yes, I'll try to fly there once a month and stay for a week or two, Lu Qing said. Yan Jihua nodded thoughtfully. I need to hire a special chef for you. Young people nowadays don't know how to cook. You'll get tired of foreign dishes after a few times. I know a little. Lu Qing couldn't help showing off. Yan Zhika nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Oh, what can you do? What are you good at? Yan Jihua smiled curiously. Actually, I can only cook noodles and egg fried rice. I'm best at these two, Lu Qing said self-deprecatingly. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt that the air was a little bit quieter, as if something dangerous was brewing. Yan Kai leaned back on the sofa and said to himself, I'm best at egg fried rice. Damn, I seem to have revealed something. Lu Qing realized something and looked at Yan Zhika in astonishment. He saw the same reaction in her eyes. Last summer, he had snuck into the Yan family and made breakfast with Ke. In the end, he was almost caught in the act by his father-in-law. At that time, he thought that the bowl of egg fried rice was specially made by Ke for him and did not realize that he was there. He seemed to have understood something. It's all your fault. Don't show off. After lunch, Yan Zhika scolded Lu Qing in the girls' bedroom. I was so afraid that my dad would jump up and take out his scalpel. I totally forgot about that. Lu Qing wiped the non-existent cold sweat. You can't get carried away. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Yan Kai said loudly. Lu, I brought you some fruits. Thank you, uncle. Lu Qing walked over and opened the door, only to see his father-in-law holding a plate of neatly cut fruits. Neatly cut. After meeting Yan Zhika's grandparents, the couple lived life as usual. Sometimes Lu Qing would go to Yan's house for dinner. Sometimes Yan Zhika would go to Lu's house for a visit. Sometimes they would go shopping and date. Sometimes they would be alone. Soon it was July 14th. The military was said to have found the whereabouts of the wine pot. At noon, Lu Qing packed his luggage and walked out of his room. You little rascal, you've improved. You know how to bring Zhika on a trip. Qi Feng nodded with satisfaction. Mom, don't underestimate your son. Lu Qing shook his head and walked to the door. Destination, Huacheng. The battle between the Dragon King and the Warrior Sage. Chapter 438. At 5:20 p.m., the plane landed at Huacheng Heishui Airport. Just as Lu Qing and Yan Zhika walked out of the arrival hall hand in hand, they felt a wave of heat that was full of moisture. It was as though they were in a steamer, and their skin lost its ability to breathe. All they felt was stuffiness, heat, and moisture. Lu Qing quickly activated his power of frost, and his body instantly felt refreshed. He even emitted a chill that was transmitted to Yan Zhika, causing her to move closer to him. Their skin touched, and her husband changed from holding to hugging. Phew, I like you so much at times like this, Cheng. She confessed without a hint of embarrassment. She then looked around and said fearfully, Let's not go to any scenic spots for the next few days, right? Otherwise, I'll die from the heat. Even with a walking air conditioner beside me, it won't be a great experience. Sure, then we'll stay in the hotel. Lu Qing chuckled, almost raising both his hands and feet in agreement with Yan Zhika's suggestion. Yan Zhika thought about it, and her eyes turned, revealing 2 rows of neat white teeth. She pretended to grind her teeth as she glared at Lu Qing. Haha, what I mean is Huacheng is famous for its food. All kinds of morning tea, afternoon tea, and all kinds of soups and snacks. Our itinerary is to eat, eat, and rest in the hotel when we're free, so we won't be exposed to the sun. Lu Qing roughly described his plan. I like that. Yenjika's tone was light as she expressed her agreement. As they spoke, they hailed a cab and arrived at the Tianyue hotel that Lu Qing had booked. It was very close to the most famous restaurants and tea houses in Huaqing. This time, Yenjika held back her shyness and took the initiative to check in. She asked Lu Qing to stay where he was, so that he wouldn't be recognized by anyone. As for Lu Qing's ID card, his photo was taken when he was in his 3rd year of high school. There was a certain difference between him and now, when the lines of his face were more distinct after years of martial arts training. Not to mention his indescribable spirit and temperament. If a stranger didn't look carefully and pay attention to the information, they wouldn't be able to recognize him as a heavenly son of the era. As expected, the receptionist didn't notice and successfully prepared a room for them. After they entered the room and put down their luggage, they went straight to the nearest Huaqing restaurant for dinner. They ate roast goose, squab, and dongxing biao. They were very satisfied and felt that the trip was worth it. Back in the hotel, Yenjika took out some makeup remover and walked into the bathroom, intending to wash off the sunscreen on her skin. Lu Qing sat on the edge of the bed and casually took out his phone. He glanced at the Longhu Club group chat. Although tomorrow was the official meetup, many of them had already arrived and were staying at the hotel booked by the local, a plumber eating mushroom. This meetup was partially sponsored by the local tycoon, Road to the Arena, and the rest was split evenly between the rest and students. Swish, swish, swish. Messages appeared one after another, giving Lu Qing a fright. Damn, they're so chatty. He muttered under his breath. After scrolling up for a long time, he finally saw the situation of the first few forum members when they first met. At that time, Wonton Seller posted a group photo and said, "La la la, I'm here to recognize you." There were a total of 5 forum members in this group photo. Lu Qing recognized the 2 who were standing on the far left and right, respectively. They were Invincible Punch Jin Tao and Road to the Arena Zhou Yuaning, who had lost to him before. Jin Tao didn't change much during the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. He was still quite handsome and masculine, but he looked a little more mature. Zhou Yuaning was wearing casual business elite-style clothes. He was a little chubby, and his hairstyle had been changed to a buzz cut with a few long concavities in the middle. In the center of the group was a girl who was about 1.5 meters tall. She was not ugly, petite and cute, and looked like a student. On her left was a short and fat man in his late 20s, and on her right was a thin and tall man who was more than 1.9 meters tall. He wore thick black-rimmed glasses, and was at most in his early 20s. The most adorable height difference. Lu Qing couldn't help laughing. Little Wonton just reached the chest of the tall man on the right. They looked like father and daughter. That's easy to guess. You're the only girl, little Wonton. Okamoto's fan spread his hands and laughed. The other 3 are all famous. Wonton Seller covered her mouth and laughed. What if I'm a cute boy? Let me say. From left to right, they are Invincible Punch, a plumber eating mushrooms, Little Wonton, pig riding knight, and Road to the Arena, replied Unparalleled Dragon King. You guessed it so quickly. You don't feel any sense of achievement. Smash table. Come, let me introduce you again. The one on the far left is our handsome little fist. He got his professional 9th pin certificate in October last year. He's been working hard to become a dance stage mighty one before graduation, so that he can step into the professional martial arts circle. Thank you for helping me brag, little Wonton. I still have a year before graduation. It's not that easy to reach the dance stage. Invincible Punch Jin Tao sent a cupping hands emoji. After getting his professional 9th pin certificate, he felt that he had a way out and was no longer so unconfident. Wonton Seller continued. Next to Little Punch is our talented Little Mushroom. He likes music, art and martial arts. We were all stunned just now. Little Mushroom. Can you not call him that? Disgusting? Mushroom is ugly, fat, short and cheap. He doesn't deserve to be called cute. Okamoto's fan and a plumber eating mushrooms were good friends who mocked each other every day. F*CK, LF*CKU. A plumber eating mushrooms sent a despising emoji. Come lie down. If you can get down, I'll admit defeat. Okamoto's fan was still as cool as ever. I lost. A plumber eating mushrooms squatted in the corner and drew circles. I've decided. When little AI arrives tomorrow, you and little mushroom will live in the same room. Wonton seller sent an emoji of a rolling snow-white meatball. Little AI. I also lost. Okamoto's fan silently retreated. Wonton seller sent an emoji hiding in the shadows. I won't introduce the one in the middle. Little pig riding is so tall, I can only look up at him. He's one more class away from entering the Beep Association, and he even manages the forum. Do you admire him? Also, I'll tell you a secret. He took little Sky home. Are you jealous? Above the sky was a girl with a bit of a rock vibe. This embezzlement, using official authority for personal gain. Okamoto's fan sent a string of words. Big Boss is so amazing. He had originally intended to send the emoji, using official authority for personal gain, but felt that it was too much of a joke, so he silently deleted it. Okamoto, I was actually prepared to kick you out of the group just now. Fortunately, you didn't say anything too outrageous. Pig riding knight raised an emoji of an emoji. There's no need to introduce little Arena. He's the real big boss in our group. Thank you for your hospitality. First bow, second bow. Wonton seller sent a red face emoji. He lost his martial arts, but gained the whole world. Haha, he's just an errand boy for his family, so he has some spare cash. Road to the arena loved to show off, and his style remained the same for decades. Lu Qing watched with a smile and scrolled down. He saw that above the sky, and sea blue, had arrived one after another. The former had straight hair, a thin face and looked decent. She wore the same black-rimmed glasses as Pig Riding Knight, and didn't show that she liked rock music. Sea Blue was a little over 160 centimeters, round, cute features and lively personality. She quickly got along well with everyone. They were all fourth-year students. More and more people gathered, and the group became more and more lively. Those who went were streaming and criticizing each other, while those who didn't went were watching and making fun of each other. Lu Qing scrolled down quickly with his thumb, and saw that unparalleled Dragon King of the Sea Turtles had joined the group about 10 minutes ago. He was tall and fat, wearing a black t-shirt, and obviously gave off the feeling of an otaku. Watching you silently. Lu Qing scrolled to the end and sent a message, saying that he was also participating in this activity. Tiger, I look down on guys like you who don't come on holidays. A plumber eating mushrooms sent a despising emoji. Yeah, little tiger, we're going to have a meal together later. We'll send you pictures of delicious food. Wonton seller echoed with a smile. Road to the arena asked in confusion. Tiger, you're only a junior when school starts. If you don't take advantage of this opportunity to have fun, you won't have time to work later. I'll try to find a more free job. Lu Qing made a joke. He had never revealed that he was a Songqing University student. A more free job usually doesn't pay much. Pig Riding Knight joked with a smirk emoji. If you were a rich second generation like Master Road, just ignore me. Okay, let's stop chatting. We're leaving. Watching restaurant. Invincible Punch said. I hate you guys. I hate all of you. Brahmin, who didn't make it, grumbled in a flirtatious manner. At this moment, Yinjuka walked out of the bathroom, fiddling with her hair. She glanced at Lu Qing and asked in confusion. Qing, what are you looking at? Aren't they meeting in person? I'm looking through the chat history of Longhu Forum. Lu Qing answered with a smile. Let me see. Yinjuka sat beside him curiously and took the phone. Lu Qing hugged her and moved his head closer. He introduced her and breathed in the girl's fragrance. Little Wonton is about the same height as Xiaoling. Yinjuka pointed at the photo and laughed. Little Wonton is a little taller. She's standing beside Pig Riding Knight and unparalleled Dragon King, just like a victim kidnapped by criminals. The contrast between height and temperament is so obvious. It's so funny. Well, if Yin Xiaoling stands there, the effect will be the same. Lu Qing teased his two fans and felt that he couldn't get enough of his wife's fragrance. Yinjika was about to say something when she felt the hand around her waist tighten, and the breath beside her ear become hotter. Her body stiffened at first and then softened. She glared at Lu Qing weakly and looked to the side. First shower. Okay. Lu Qing jumped up and dashed to the bathroom. On July 15th, the two followed the plan. They woke up in the morning to train and enjoy breakfast before returning to the hotel to rest. Lu Qing didn't have time to think of any bad ideas before Yinjika urged him to start practicing his oral English to lay the foundation for his upcoming trip to America. They laughed and learned until after dinner. Only then did the girl allow him to do what he wanted. It was a romantic moment. On July 16th, after morning training and breakfast, they set off for Mt Qixia near Huaqing. This was the home ground of Longhu Club. When the car entered the mountain road, Yinjika, who was enjoying the scenery, suddenly pulled Lu Qing and pointed to a bus outside. Cheng, Little Wonton and the rest. Lu Qing glanced sideways and saw that the bus that the sedan had just passed was filled with members of the Longhu Club Forum, who had come for a meetup. Chapter 439. The bus was soon pulled away and disappeared from Lu Qing and Yinjika's sight. What a coincidence. Lu Qing shook his head and laughed. He pushed his glasses up and sighed. He knew very well that his friends from the Longhu Club would be watching the match today, but he didn't expect to run into them on the way. Of course, this was just his own personal experience. Even if they had seen the passenger in the car, they wouldn't have known that it was his friend, Schrodinger's tiger. There was even a high chance that they wouldn't recognize him as Lu Qing. Hearing that, Yinjika tilted her head and glanced at her husband with a smile. Qing, I thought of a line from a song. What is it? Lu Qing asked curiously. It's hard to hold hands if we're not destined to meet. Yinjika pursed her lips and smiled. What do you mean by that? Lu Qing replied, annoyed and amused at the same time. He added wittily, then we'll be together even if we're 1,000 miles apart by fate, and spend 100 years sleeping on the same pillow? Yinjika spat and turned her head to the side with a smile. She then looked at Lu Qing with disdain. It's such an old song, and you still remember it so clearly? Uncle Cheng. As they bickered, the car slowed down and drove into the parking lot. Lu Qing and Yinjika paid half of the rental fee and got out of the car. They followed the instructions and walked along the road hand in hand for about 600 to 700 meters. After turning a corner in a mountain valley, the view before them suddenly opened up. They felt the heat factor in the air increase and become extremely active. In front of them was a wide area that sank deeper into the center. Every few steps, flames would emerge from the ground and burn quietly. They didn't seem to be extinguished even if it was day or night. Looking into the distance, Lu Qing could see a dark red liquid flowing in the cracks at the core of this place. The parts closer to the outside seemed to be covered by a dark gray armor. Just looking at it from afar, he could feel the tyrannical heat. This was the home ground of the Longhu Club, the famous fiery hell. Around this area, which was the size of 2 or 3 football fields, there were many semi-enclosed transparent corridors. The corridors were either high or low, divided into several rows, or partitioned into private rooms. These were the stands in the usual sense. In order to prevent the weak spectators from being injured by the flying flames, sputtering magma, and the aftermath of the explosion, these corridors were all enclosed with high-tech explosion-proof and fire-resistant glass. There was also a sound channel. Yinjika took out the 2 tickets from her bag and found the corresponding glass box. Under the guidance of the security, she opened the door and entered. There was a sofa, a coffee table, and 3 big screens showing the fiery hell from different angles. This is the first time I've enjoyed VIP treatment in the stands. Lu Qing looked around and said with a smile. Actually, I prefer the kind with more people. The atmosphere is contagious. Yinjika rolled her eyes and didn't hide her thoughts. But my grandpa insisted on giving me this. He was afraid that accidents might happen. I already told him that I'm with you, but he was still worried. I need to be at the inhuman stage to make grandpa feel completely at ease. Lu Qing said self-deprecatingly. In the eyes of a physical invulnerability mighty one, a mere top-notch 6th pin dan stage martial artist wasn't that safe. Maybe, young man. Go for it. Yenjika replied half-jokingly and half-encouragingly. Various exciting replays of the pre-match match were played. It was now 10:25 in the morning. All the seats in the stands were occupied, including the reporters' cameras. Unmanned aerial cameras took off and took their positions. They transmitted the images back to the glass corridors so that the spectators could see what was happening. Lu Qing noticed that little Wonton and the rest were in the glass room 3 seats to his left. They were so excited that they refused to sit down and were looking around. After a round of introductions and dancing at the edge of the venue, the sky suddenly darkened. A heavy and oppressive aura came vividly from the paper. Boom! A thunderclap suddenly exploded, turning into a sound wave that rolled out in all directions as if it had materialized. Is this the aura of the warrior sage Qiandonglu? Connecting with heaven and earth and interfering with nature? Lu Qing pondered. He couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up and walked half a step away from the glass in front of him. Yenjika did the same, standing shoulder to shoulder with him. Right at this moment, the ground fire in the spacious field leaped up at the same time. The dark red iron current shook off the black ash, and a few golden waves leaped out. Boom! A stream of magma erupted, rushing into the sky and falling back down. It lit up the darkness and illuminated a figure in the distance of the venue. He wore a navy blue martial arts suit with dragons and tigers embroidered on it. He was tall and straight, with handsome features, sword-like eyebrows, and starry eyes. His short hair stood up, giving him a wild and untamed look. It was hard to tell from his appearance that he was a man in his early 30s. Thump, thump, thump. With every step he took, the ground trembled. The flames leaped up again and again, and the magma spurted out again and again. There was no call. Everyone, including Lu Qing, shouted a well-known name in unison, and let it reverberate in the mountains. Dragon King. Dragon King, Chen Qitao. Amidst such an atmosphere, the sky darkened once more. It was as if dark clouds were converging, and it pressed down on the spectators to the point that their hearts were uneasy. It pressed down on the waves of voices, and it pressed down on the soaring flames and soaring magma to the point that they lost their luster. From the other side, a man dressed strangely walked out slowly. His white robe resembled a martial arts suit, but it was also a Taoist robe. The edges were embroidered with green and purple lightning. He was about 2 to 3 centimeters shorter than Lu Qing. He had delicate features, an elegant temperament, and was introverted. Warrior Sage Qiandonglu. The warrior sage Qiandonglu, who was 2 years younger than the Dragon King. He had made a name for himself at a young age. He had caught up with Chen Qitao head-on, and suppressed an entire generation of martial artists. No one dared to call themselves the heavenly son of China anymore. As he grew older, the previous generations of mighty ones were subdued as well. Although Lu Qing admired the Dragon King and preferred the man with his true nature, he had to admit that the warrior sage, Qiandonglu, was the ideal grandmaster in his heart. Now he was going up against the Dragon King and the entire audience single-handedly. The referee didn't dare to enter the center of the arena. He raised his right hand from afar, dutifully playing the role of a humanoid object. First round of the competition. Dragon King, Chen Qitao versus Warrior Sage, Qiandonglu. Those with titles had to be addressed as a sign of respect in such situations. Dragon King. Dragon King. Amidst the cheers, the referee swung his right hand down and announced loudly, "Begin." As soon as he finished speaking, he had already darted away from the battle zone. Bam! At this moment, Dragon King, Chen Qitao, had already thrown a punch, as if he was going to hit the void. However, his fist was like a missile, forcefully dragging his body forward, leaving behind afterimages and creating a loud sound like breaking the sound barrier. Using the fist as the body. As the afterimages extended, the Dragon King's fist was instantly ignited by a golden red flame. It spread rapidly and covered his entire body, turning him into a walking god of fire or Emperor Yan. Super Saiyan. This thought popped into Lu Cheng's mind. Warrior Sage, Qiandonglu, and the Dragon King had fought countless matches and understood each other well. He had long since lost the mood to test his moves. Facing the attack, he clapped his palms together. Boom. A thunderous boom reverberated in everyone's hearts, shaking the glass a few hundred meters away. Yinjika felt as if her soul had been struck, her spirit wavering, and she couldn't focus. At the same time, the warrior sage separated his palms and pulled out a leaping purple thunder blade. As soon as it appeared, it slashed at the golden-red flame enveloping the Dragon King's body. Qian Donglu followed closely behind, encircled by streaks of silver-white lightning, closing in like a deity descending from the heavens. The fierce battle thus began. The battle between the two mighty ones was in full swing. Lu Qing watched in fascination, wishing he could copy their every move and variation. Compared to the live broadcast, watching the battle in person was more three-dimensional. One could better experience the power of a physical invulnerability mighty one. For example, the occasional trembling of the ground, the waves of fire that could be felt through the heat-resistant glass, and the deafening thunder. The battle lasted for a full 20 minutes. The magma in the center of the arena had turned into a fountain. Golden, red, purple, and white fireballs surrounded the Dragon King, Chen Qitao. As he continued to attack, the fireballs fused together and condensed into a ball, shrinking in the center of his palm. With a roar, the Dragon King extended his arms, leaped high, and smashed down with his fist. Boom! Lu Qing reacted quickly and reached out to cover Yinjika's eyes. At this moment, the place where the two experts were fighting lit up. The audience's eyes were blinded for a short while, and some even cried. It was as if a big sun had descended on this place. Boom! Waves of fire shot out, and a small mushroom cloud rose into the air, blooming at its peak. When Lu Qing opened his eyes, the Dragon King had won by half a move against the warrior sage, taking advantage of the home field advantage. After watching the replay, Lu Qing thought of his previous experience and couldn't help but praise him. Awesome! This was a battle that made a martial artist's blood boil. Within a radius of a few hundred meters, the Dragon King was like a god. Following that, Taoist Wuguang, Taoist Yunyan, Empress Luo, Ning Zitong, and Optimus Prime, Long Zhen, all physical invulnerability mighty ones took the field one after another. After 5 tough rounds, Longhu Club won 3-2. It was already past 12. So exciting. Yinjika looked at Lu Qing excitedly, praising him in a low voice. Yeah, I didn't come in vain. This is much more exciting than the live broadcast. Lu Qing looked at the various marks on the glass. The two of them exited the VIP room hand in hand as they discussed the day's match excitedly. At this moment, Yinjika, whose eyes were wandering, tugged at Lu Qing, tilted her chin and said, "Little wonton." Ah! Lu Qing looked over in confusion, and saw the petite and youthful wonton seller running towards him with a booklet in her hand. Her target was probably seemingly, It's me? Why is she looking for me? Don't tell me she knows I'm Schrodinger's tiger? That's impossible. I've never revealed that I'm a Songqing University student. Also, I didn't update anything about my identity. How could they guess? While he was at a loss, Wonton Seller approached. She looked at the confused and surprised Lu Qing and Yinjika and smiled sweetly. "Hello, Lu Qing." That's right. She recognized me. It's normal for her to ask for an autograph. Lu Qing felt like he understood the truth. He smiled and replied, "Hello." Wonton Seller explained embarrassedly, "We didn't recognize you because you were wearing glasses, but we still saw." She didn't continue and glanced at Yinjika. A girl who was so beautiful that she had her own uniqueness was easy to recognize. "I see." Lu Qing looked at his wife with some ridicule. She glared back at him. Wonton Seller smiled again. She pointed at a plumber eating mushrooms, pig riding knight, and the others behind her. "We're from the Longhu Club Forum. You should know those two, right?" She was talking about the road to the arena and the invincible punch. "Yes, my memory isn't that bad. The Warrior Sage Challenge tournament has a special meaning in my heart." Lu Qing chuckled. He couldn't figure out why little Wonton was here. He remembers. Wonton Seller shouted excitedly. Then she turned around and said sincerely, "Since then, many of us have thought highly of you. We watched you grow up step by step and lead Songqing University Martial Arts Club to win the national championship. We really believe that you're the heavenly son of the age and will become a mighty one with physical invulnerability in the future." After confirming that it was you before the tournament, We posted on the forum and made a call. Many forum members responded. She paused and raised the booklet in her hand. On it were the names of Wonton Seller, Pig Riding Knight, Road to the Arena, and others. She bowed and said, "We represent ourselves and a portion of the Longhu Club fans to make a sincere request to you. If you don't return to the Ice God sect in the future, can you consider the Longhu Club first? We really like you. We really believe that you can create glory here." When Wonton Seller made this pose, Road to the Arena, Invincible Punch, Above the Sky, and others made the same pose. They didn't talk about others and only expressed themselves. Lu Cheng was suddenly a little touched. He also felt a little strange that someone familiar would do this. He smiled and said, "I can't promise anything. I can only say that you know that I'm a fan of the Longhu Club." He reached out and took the booklet. Little Wonton's smile was exceptionally bright. Thank you. We'll post a Lu Cheng Longhu Club topic on Weibo until you make your choice." After saying that, she waved her hand and ran back happily, high-fiving Road to the Arena and the others one by one. Lu Cheng looked at them deeply. He took the booklet and pulled his little fairy out of the arena. "I'm also a fan of the Longhu Club," Yenjika suddenly whispered. Lu Cheng looked over. The two looked at each other and smiled. They had a tacit understanding. When they were far away, Wonton Seller, who was still excitedly talking about this matter, suddenly exclaimed, "I'm stupid. I forgot to ask for his autograph. I forgot to ask Lu Cheng if he has an account in our forum." After lunch, they went back to the hotel. Yenjika went into the bathroom and removed the sunscreen on her face, neck, arms, and legs. Lu Cheng put a pillow behind him and sat on the bed leisurely. He was browsing the Longhu Club group, and beside him were petitions sent by members of the forum such as Wonton Seller. "Haha, little dragon is so considerate. He took a picture of Lu Cheng and me." Wonton Seller was showing off at this moment. The so-called group photo was taken when she was explaining the whole story to Lu Cheng. Therefore, only the back of her ponytail could be seen in the photo. However, the girl didn't mind. She even said happily, "No need for beauty treatments." "I hate you." Brahmin, who had heard about her encounter with Lu Cheng in the group chat, said with a crying emoji. Wonton Seller looked at her weakly. "I wanted to get an autograph for you, but I was too nervous. I forgot about everything except for business. We're done." Brahmin covered her ears and shook her head. What position does broken friendship mean? Okamoto's fan interrupted. He was a completely different person in real life. According to Wonton Seller, he was shy and didn't talk much. "I hate you guys," Brahmin repeated. Then she at the unparalleled Dragon King. Little dragon, what's my idol's level? How can I tell? Even a mighty one with physical invulnerability can't judge the level of a dance stage expert just by looking at his appearance. Unparalleled Dragon King spread his hands and said, "But it's been less than 3 months since the national competition ended. At most, he's pushed his physical fitness and martial arts to the level of a top 6th pin. Does that mean Bai Shaoxing has a higher chance of winning?" Road to the Arena asked with interest. "There's still more than 5 months. Lu Cheng has awakened his supernatural ability. There's still some hope for him to reach the inhuman stage before the end of the year." Unparalleled Dragon King answered. "I'm a little worried. If Bai Shaoxing wins, my idol will be very unhappy." Brahmin couldn't join the group because her parents were watching her. She could only show her presence in the group. "Sai, what's there to worry about? The year before last January, I wasn't that far behind Lu Cheng. Today, I haven't even touched the threshold of the dance stage, but he's already trying to reach the inhuman stage. Even if he doesn't make it at the end of the year and suffers some ridicule, he can still complete the transformation next year and fight back against those who slander him." Invincible Punch sighed with emotion. "Let's not talk about this anymore. When you enter university, you'll be able to see Lu Cheng represent our Longhu Club." Wonton Seller encouraged her with what she thought was the best speed of improvement. "When the time comes, you'll come to Huacheng." As she continued, she sighed and said, "I always thought that I was mentally strong, but I thought that Lu Cheng might be a fan of our Longhu Club, so I planned to ask him if he had an account in the forum. If he didn't, I would ask him to register one. If he registers, I'll give him the title of Jar Grass. Invincible Punch said with a silly smile. Little fan, I'm sorry I couldn't get his signature. Wonton Seller was talking to herself and didn't care about the others' responses. Little Wonton, don't be sad. These tasks can be passed to Little Nightfall. She's already in the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Brahmin comforted her good friend. Yeah, and Lu Cheng's signature is worthless. His handwriting is too ugly. Lu Cheng couldn't help but come out and make fun of himself. Wonton Seller and Brahmin replied almost at the same time. We just like it. That's called character. Haha, Tiger, don't reason with girls at this time. Pig Riding Knight laughed. I posted Lu Cheng's response in the forum. Everyone is very enthusiastic. Shangqing has Peng Liyun in the future, Kongtong has Ren Li, and Daxing Temple has Zhihai and Shirshan. We need Lu Cheng too. I wonder when he'll reach the inhuman stage, and if he still has the potential to reach the physical invulnerability stage. A plumber eating mushrooms said worriedly. A good seedling may not grow into a big tree. The phrase "the future belongs to you" is often poisonous. While Lu Cheng was chatting, Yenjika walked out of the bathroom wearing the slippers provided by the hotel. She glanced at the petition book and smiled. Don't you think it's quite complicated? Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that I'm Schrodinger's tiger. Lu Cheng replied with a sigh. After a few words about this matter, Yenjika sat on the edge of the bed with one leg curled up and the other hanging down. She browsed Weibo and the news and shouted with great interest. Cheng, come and take a look. Dragon King is so handsome and stylish in this picture. Lu Cheng moved closer and found that this was the picture of Dragon King after he used his killer move. Golden red flames danced, and his muscles showed the most perfect proportion. He was full of strength. Yeah. He agreed with a compliment. And this one. Dragon King looks so young, and he's very stylish. Yenjika read out the compliments of Dragon King in the news from time to time. Lu Cheng listened to his little fairy's narration, and suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. He didn't think much of his wife's worship of Dragon King, and instead thought that they had something in common. However, after watching the live battle, he suddenly realized that Dragon King was only 12 or 13 years older than him. He was much more handsome than him, and his martial arts were much better than his. Moreover, he might join Longhu Club in the future. They wouldn't be in two different worlds and would cross paths. Lu Cheng felt depressed and slowly fell silent. Girls are usually more sensitive. While sharing, Yenjika suddenly raised her head and looked at Lu Cheng in confusion. She blinked twice and said, Cheng, what's wrong? Nothing. Lu Cheng held his phone and pretended to browse the forum. Yenjika pursed her lips and looked at him suspiciously. Recalling the situation just now, the corners of her mouth suddenly curled up and her dimples showed. She whispered in surprise and joy. Cheng, are you jealous? Of course not. Lu Cheng subconsciously retorted. Yenjika changed her position and knelt beside him. She looked at his face with a smile and said to herself, I just admire the Dragon King's spirit of never admitting defeat. As an idol, his ego, flamboyance, and fussiness are all very cute and adorable. But if we were to get closer to each other, I wouldn't like such a person. Moreover, I've always been the kind that likes rational people. Do you see that I rarely repost and comment on Dragon King's news? I'm not jealous. Lu Cheng unconsciously smiled and denied with a little embarrassment. Yenjika pursed her lips and laughed secretly. She raised 3 fingers on her right hand and said wittily, I swear, I won't worship Dragon King so much in the future. I swear, I only have one favorite idol, and that is sky-shaking roar brother Cheng. Lu Cheng burst into laughter and denied again. I'm really not jealous. Is it worth it for me to be jealous over such a thing? Yenjika's beautiful eyes sparkled. She covered her mouth and laughed. Cheng, you're so cute when you're jealous. Before she could finish her words, she was pushed onto the bed by the angry Lu Cheng. Wash. Oh, wash. In the midst of the intermittent sound, the girl's slippers fell off, and her delicate toes curled and stretched from time to time. For the next day and a half, their arrangements were adjusted. Breakfast, lunch, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper were the same 5 meals a day. However, the time they spent practicing their oral English was much shorter. On the 18th of July, Lu Cheng, who was full of satisfaction, held his luggage and waited for her to come out of the bathroom. He was ready to check out and go home. A few minutes later, Yenjika opened the door and walked out. Her face was a little pale. She pursed her lips and said, "I'm on my period." "I know. I've already made you some ginger tea with brown sugar. Come, let me rub it for you." Lu Cheng shook the thermos cup in his hand. Yenjika bit her lower lip. She seemed to be in a bad mood. She couldn't help but whisper, "What do you know? You don't know anything." "Ah." Lu Cheng looked at Yenjika blankly. He didn't understand why she suddenly lost her temper. At this time, Yenjika came back to her senses. She forced a smile and said, "Cheng, I was in a bad mood just now. I didn't mean to scold you. I understand." "It's your period." Lu Cheng suddenly understood. "You don't know anything." Yenjika put her right hand on her waist and looked down at her toes. She whispered silently, "That crazy idea didn't come true. God didn't want me to stay." The next step was to go to Songcheng according to plan and complete the procedures. They would say goodbye at the beginning of August. Chapter 440. After returning from Huacheng, he followed Yenjika to Songcheng. As she packed up the things she needed to bring over, and as she met more and more with Gu Shuang, Songli, and Xing Jingjing, the matter that Lu Cheng subconsciously didn't want to think about became clearer and clearer. It became harder and harder to ignore. Unknowingly, there was a heavy feeling between the two of them. Even if they had countermeasures and were full of confidence, unknown encounters and foreign relationships still made them feel a little fearful and uncertain. Moreover, one of them was only 20 years old, and the other was 19 years old. In this mood, Lu Cheng and Yenjika especially missed the time they had now. They took every opportunity to spend time together, greedily seeking each other, and used the pleasure of the body to relieve the depression of the heart. Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang were happy to see them meet and spend time alone, while Yan Kai and Ji Mingyu turned a blind eye and didn't say anything. However, the burning of indulgence couldn't beat the passage of time, and the day of the girls' departure finally came. August 5th, Gaofan Airport, outside the security and border inspection area. Yan Kai and Ji Mingyu moved a few steps away, leaving a private space for the young couple to say goodbye. Yenjika pursed her lips and stared at Lu Cheng attentively with her clear eyes. She habitually adjusted his collar and said in a soft voice, "Cheng, you don't have to worry about anything. Empress Dowager is worried that I'm not familiar with this place, so she plans to accompany me until September. The security in America is not good, but there are only a few streets. I don't plan to go out, so there's no need to worry about this. Besides, Empress Dowager spent a lot of money to hire a dance stage senior from Shushan Study to be my bodyguard for a few years. Her husband passed away early, and her son is in college. She doesn't have much to do at home, and she can cook well. I'll come back during the 2 long holidays every year. You have to make time for me, okay? I promise." Lu Cheng tried to smile. After Yenjika finished talking about herself, she took a deep look at Lu Cheng. Her eyes suddenly became gentle and full of reluctance. "You have to treat yourself better when I'm not here. Take Talker and the others out for a meal often and comfort yourself. Don't always eat in the cafeteria. Also, don't just wear whatever clothes you get every day. You have to think about how to match them. If you don't understand, ask me in advance, or ask Talker. You're a famous martial artist and a heavenly son of heaven, so you have to pay attention to your image." As she spoke, the rims of her eyes reddened, and she was momentarily unable to speak. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and answered in a deep voice, "Okay, when the Empress Dowager decides when to return to China, I will book a ticket to come here." The ice god Sex said that the passport and visa wouldn't be a problem. He just needed to go through the procedures. "Okay. Remember to reply to my messages and chat with me every day." Yenjika forced a smile and waved her hand. "It's about time. I'll go in first." "Okay." Lu Cheng waved his hand and watched as the girl turned around and moved closer to Yan Kai and Ji Mingyu. After taking 2 steps, she suddenly turned around and waved her hand at Lu Cheng. Lu Qing responded immediately and nodded. Yenjika met up with her parents and walked to the security and border inspection area. After taking a few steps forward, her hair swayed gently. She looked back and made contact with Lu Qing's eyes. She was stunned for a few seconds. She walked and stopped. It wasn't a long distance, but she turned her head to look at him 7 or 8 times. After gazing at him again, she squeezed out a smile and waved her hand again. She mouthed, "See you in September." She turned around, looked back and stepped forward. Shi Yankai and Ji Mingyu turned to the right. The figure in a chiffon shirt, jeans and white shoes slowly disappeared from Lu Cheng's sight, inch by inch. Seeing this scene, Lu Cheng's heart surged with uncontrollable and indescribable emotions. Without thinking, he strode forward a few steps, just in time to see the slender and beautiful figure walking out of his line of sight. He opened his mouth and wanted to shout something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He felt lost. His little fairy had completely walked out of his sight. Behind her parents, Yenjika dragged a small suitcase and moved forward. She subconsciously looked back again, trying to find the familiar and affectionate figure. However, as far as her eyes could see, there were only strange faces. Her heart suddenly felt empty, and her mind was blank. She suddenly turned around and ran back a few steps with her suitcase in hand. She was in a hurry to find something. Kuh. Yenkai's voice came into her ears and made her stop. She reluctantly looked at the invisible entrance, bit her lip, and returned to her parents' side with a pitiful look in her eyes. Yenkai and Ji Mingyu looked at each other and sighed quietly. They didn't say anything. After the security check, Yenjika became silent on the way to the departure lounge of the first-class cabin. As she walked, she habitually reached out to the side, trying to pull or hold something. When she held it, she didn't feel the expected strength. Instead, she felt the same slender and cold as herself. She turned her head in surprise and saw that she was holding Empress Dowager's hand. She tried to hide something. She wanted to take advantage of the situation and put her other hand on Empress Dowager's hand. However, the weight in her hand clearly told her that there was a suitcase there. Yenjika was stunned. Her eyes suddenly became misty and quickly turned red. She turned her head and looked to the side. Ji Mingyu was experienced and keenly noticed the change in her daughter's mood. She put down the suitcase, held her hand, and patted it with a smile. "I should have asked Lu to send you to America. Do you dislike Mom and Dad?" "Of course not." Yenjika tightly restrained and wrapped all her emotions in her heart, not letting them leak out too much. Just like in the past, she stubbornly refused to cry because of sadness. Yenkai carried a backpack and dragged 2 small suitcases. He watched quietly from the side. Ji Mingyu didn't say much. She pulled the suitcase again and entered the departure lounge of the first-class cabin with her husband and daughter. She poured a glass of juice and put it in front of Yenjika. She sat down with a smile. "I heard that sweetness can soothe the emotions?" "Yes." Yenjika picked up the juice and took a sip. It was sweet and sour, stimulating her spirit. Ji Mingyu's voice softened. "I've been worried that you would do something stupid. It seems that I worried too much. You are indeed my precious daughter. According to Lu's plan, you will be separated for at most a month before you meet again. Don't be sad." "Stupid." Yenjika was stunned by her mother's words. A bitter smile appeared on her face. "I really did do something stupid. I've never thought about having a child. I'm not ready to be a mother yet. I'm just trying to grasp the illusory probability and throw the decision to God for the sake of the crazy idea that I can't bear to part with Chung. Now that I think about it, if I really did succeed, it would be unimaginable. I've been so stupid and crazy recently. But on the other hand, Chung had done more than 1 or 2 stupid things for me. For example, when I hit on him at the entrance of the martial arts club, he was panting and nervous. For example, when we went paddling at Jiaoshan Lake in the dormitory, I jumped on the boat easily. He wanted to take the opportunity to hold my hand, but he froze there. It was silly and funny. For example, when he confessed to me on Valentine's Day, he was like an impulsive fool. For example, when we went on our first date, he wanted to hold my hand but was afraid of being rejected, so he was stiff and nervous. When we finally held hands, He was so silly that he didn't look at where he was going. For example, when we kissed in the locker room and were interrupted by reporter Shu, he was so flustered and annoyed that he seemed to want to beat the person outside. For example, every time he couldn't help but want to be intimate with me, but he controlled his bottom line and always went to take a cold shower with a look of sadness and helplessness. Yenjika's thoughts wandered as she recalled the embarrassing things that Lu Qing had done for her. Her lips curled up a little bit, feeling both happy and happy. But as the memories went deeper, the curve of her smile slowly froze. Something seemed to be fermenting in her heart, and something was expanding. She was about to lose control of everything. For example, after we lost to Shanbei, Chung suddenly had the idea of jumping off a building with me in his arms. Riding the wind, we hugged each other tightly. For example, he always led me to do bad things again and again. He climbed the wall and stayed out all night. For example, that night when he massaged my legs, his heart thumped and he couldn't help but kiss me inch by inch. For example, at the critical moment he said "Ku" with anticipation and anxiety. His ecstasy and excitement when he got permission. And he still wanted to protect me under such circumstances. For example, his cute awkwardness when he was inexplicably jealous of Dragon King. The scenes of the past 2 years reappeared one after another. Every bit of beauty and emotion in the pursuit and love was never forgotten. Like bubbles, they popped up and filled Yenjika's heart and mind. Her vision gradually blurred, and she felt that her habitual suppression and restraint were about to break free. "Ku, are you crying?" Ji Mingyu looked at her daughter in surprise. Yenjika wiped her eyes and forced a smile. "Of course not, Mom. You know that the more sad I am, the less likely I am to cry." She lowered her head and picked up the phone. She couldn't help but ask Lu Qing. "Qing, what are you doing now?" Lu Qing stood at a high place outside the airport. He replied with a half smile and half sigh. "I'm looking for a place where I can see the flights taking off and landing. Looking for a place where I can see the flights taking off and landing." Yenjika repeated in her mind. She felt that everything in her heart was suddenly out of control. She only felt that the memories of her youth, charm, touching, and warmth were inexplicably pulled away and were about to disappear. Her vision was completely blurred. Suddenly, she felt something rolling on her face and sliding across her lips. It was salty. "Ku." Ji Mingyu and Yan Kai looked at their daughter, who suddenly burst into tears and stood there in a daze. Yenjika couldn't control her tears anymore. She grabbed the phone and stood up. Choking with sobs, she said, "Mom, Dad, I'm going to make a call." She rushed to a corner and dialed Lu Cheng's number in a panic. "Hello, Cheng," the girl shouted with a slightly trembling voice. Drops of tears streaked across her fair cheeks and kept falling down. "Ku, what's wrong?" Lu Cheng asked nervously and concernedly. Yenjika's vision was blurred. She said while crying, "Cheng, I don't think I've ever said that to you." She sniffed and shouted emotionally in a low voice, "Cheng, yes?" Lu Cheng's eyes were inexplicably wet. Yenjika calmed down and tears filled her eyes. She said, "Cheng, I love you." An hour later, Lu Cheng checked his phone and confirmed that the flight was about to take off. He then raised his head and stared blankly at the airport. He saw a large passenger plane slowly, soaring into the sky and disappearing before his eyes. Seeing this, he only felt that his heart was empty. It was like the moon missing a corner, and the sea at low tide. He couldn't make up for it no matter how hard he tried. He withdrew his gaze and walked down aimlessly. Suddenly his phone rang. It was a call from Geysershire. "Hello, Master?" Lu Qing answered calmly. Geysershire laughed and said, "Little Yen, have you taken off? Previously, it wasn't easy for me to order you around, you brat. There are clues about the origin of the Do word incantation wine pot. The military originally wanted to investigate it themselves, but this old man thought about it and decided to throw it to you to temper your overall ability." Chapter 441. The fighting formula wine pot came from Li Wangquan, the boss of Li family's silver ornaments in Jingyan ancient city. Follow this lead. The mission in Linbian has become more dangerous. After confirmation, the sect has increased your reward to 150,000 yuan. The money will be transferred to you in 2 days. Pay attention to the money in your account. In short, contact me or the military immediately if there are any accidents or risks in the mission. TSK, where there's life, there's hope, right? Lu Qing closed his eyes, recalling his master's advice. He had just received a message that the mission reward had been received. His savings had risen from a low of 840,000 yuan to 991,000 yuan. Since the end of June until now, he had spent a lot of money. He had stayed in a 5-star hotel for more than 10 days, bought a couple of rings for women, and his own martial arts expenses had increased. Eating and drinking were just a small part of it. During this period, although he had the red packets from the Yen family to supplement his expenses, the numbers in his account were still decreasing rapidly. Considering the expenses of traveling to and from America for a long time, after a long time, he was once again under financial pressure, and was full of the urge to earn money. And the 150,000 that the sect generously gave him was like a timely rain that moistened his wallet. Our next stop is Jishuan. The stop time is short. Please wait at the door. At this moment, the sound of the broadcast made Lu Qing, who was too lazy to even play with his phone, stand up. He grabbed the backpack on the luggage rack with one hand, walked past the strange passengers next to him, entered the corridor, and lined up to the door at the right time. Zhengyan Ancient City was part of Jishuan City. It was a popular tourist destination in recent years. Surrounded by high mountains and steep ridges, it was relatively inconvenient to get there. There was no railway, so the ancient charm was well preserved. To get there, one had to go to Jishuan and other nearby places to take a bus or hire an unlicensed taxi. Lu Qing didn't waste his energy. After exiting the station, he went straight to the bus center and bought the earliest long-distance bus. Less than 20 minutes later, he checked his ticket and got on the bus. Seeing that no one had pressed their seat number, he habitually found a seat at the back of the middle and left the one by the window empty. He sat down and turned his head. Seeing the empty seat beside him, he was stunned and seemed to settle down a little. He moved his body and sat by the window. He pulled the curtains to block out the dazzling sunlight and avoid direct exposure. He leaned back against the back of the chair and closed his eyes. His thoughts were in a mess. Through the sound of footsteps and the slight vibration of the vehicle, he instinctively heard more and more passengers. Suddenly, someone stopped beside him and was about to speak when he coincidentally opened his eyes and turned his head. "Hello, classmate. Can I change seats?" He pointed to himself and the beautiful and slender girl beside him. "I want to sit with my girlfriend. Can you do me a favor?" Lu Qing took a deep look at them. He pushed his black-rimmed glasses and smiled. "Sure, where are you?" Thank you. The boy and girl were overjoyed. They hurriedly expressed their gratitude and pointed to a seat in the second last row. "That's the only one left. I'm sorry. It's nothing. I'm alone anyway." Lu Qing smiled. He took his luggage with one hand and walked into the aisle. The young couple didn't hear the emotion in his words. They just kept thanking him with their palms together. Lu Qing took 2 steps forward and saw the empty seat. He also saw the passenger by the window and his exaggerated arms in his black short-sleeved shirt. No wonder the young couple looked for me instead of him to change seats. Lu Qing subconsciously understood. At this moment, the girl behind the man in the black t-shirt slipped. The mineral water bottle that she had just unscrewed shook and splashed forward. Since the last row was higher than the front row, the splash went straight for the neck and the back of the head of the man in the black t-shirt. However, the moment the girl slipped, the man in the black t-shirt moved to the side and coincidentally avoided the splash. The splash only drenched the spot where he was originally sitting. I'm sorry. The girl in the t-shirt, shorts, and sandals held the bottle firmly and stood up to apologize in panic and fear. The man in the black t-shirt's arms could be her thighs. Looking at the girl's pretty face and figure, the man in the black t-shirt smiled generously and said, "It's nothing. Can you give me a tissue to wipe it?" Sure. The girl took out a stack of paper towels from her bag and handed it to him. Lu Qing quietly watched this episode that no one else paid attention to. He nodded thoughtfully. Absolute reaction and restrained chi and blood. This is a Dan stage fighter. As for what rank he is, it's hard to tell from his appearance. After wiping his seat, the man in the black t-shirt took the opportunity to start a conversation. He twisted his body and chatted with the girl and her companion about Zhengyan ancient city. It was obvious that he had been to many places and was quite knowledgeable. The two girls listened with great interest and occasionally giggled. During this process, Lu Qing put his backpack on the luggage rack and sat beside the man in the black t-shirt unhurriedly, which attracted a seemingly casual and habitual glance from the man in the black t-shirt. The man in the black t-shirt saw that Lu Qing was about 1.76 meters tall and wore a pair of nerdy black-rimmed glasses. He wasn't particularly strong, but his face was well defined. The man in the black t-shirt withdrew his gaze and continued to chat with the two girls in the back row. Lu Qing also took the opportunity to look at him. He found that the man's skin was quite dark, and the corners of his eyes and mouth showed signs of hardships. His eyebrows were short and thick, which left a deep impression. Lu Qing didn't look at him anymore. He closed his eyes again and lay back to rest. Some doubt surfaced in his mind. What a coincidence. There's also a Dan stage fighter going to Zhengyan ancient city. However, a Dan stage fighter is also a person who knows how to travel. There's nothing strange about going to Zhengyan ancient city. 50 minutes later, the bus arrived at the entrance of Zhengyan ancient city under the scorching sun as the two girls became more familiar with each other, and Lu Qing looked at his phone from time to time. 2 sections of the old city wall were left here, which had a lot of local characteristics. After getting off the bus, Lu Qing found a spot and took out his phone to take a few photos from different angles. Just as he was about to switch the page and send the photos, the two girls in the back row approached him and said with a pleading smile, "Handsome, handsome, can you take a photo for us? Take a photo of the two of us first, then the three of us." Among them, the girl in the ankle-length cotton skirt pointed at the man in the black t-shirt. "Okay." Lu Qing smiled calmly and agreed. This was a piece of cake for him. He took the digital camera from the girl in shorts and sandals and studied it for a while. Then he took 2 steps back and waited for them to pose. "Thank you," the two girls shouted in unison. They took back the digital camera and lowered their heads to admire the previous photos. They also called the man in the black t-shirt over. Lu Qing didn't stop. He walked to the entrance of the ancient city and sent the photos he just took to Yanjika. "We've arrived at Zhengyan. The environment is not bad." Then he sent a sneering emoji and said, "Someone just asked me to take a photo for them. That's so arrogant. They're digging their own graves. Do you think my photos are good enough?" After sending the message, he searched for the location of the Li family's silver ornaments. He walked straight and turned left at the 3rd intersection. He saw the vintage signboard. Lu Qing didn't enter the store immediately. Instead, he looked around and entered the tea bar opposite. He ordered a cup of yuanyang tea with ice and sat by the door. He pretended to be casually observing the Li family's silver ornaments. You may know a person for a long time but not his heart. No matter what he asked from Li Wangquan, who he hadn't met yet, he didn't dare to fully believe that he was telling the truth. He didn't hide anything or take advantage of the situation to smuggle goods. And under the premise that Li Wangquan hadn't committed a crime, he had a bottom line in his heart. He wouldn't use the army formula to scare the innocent and break their spirits. He had to ask more, prepare more, and do more homework. After a while, Lu Qing took a sip of ice and picked up his phone. He unlocked the screen to see if there was a reply and what it was. The screen lit up. The only thing in the dialog box was the photo and the message he had just sent. There was nothing else. Lu Qing was silent for a moment. Then he remembered the time difference and felt an inexplicable emptiness in his heart. He shook his head and laughed at himself. After about 10 minutes, the two girls in the back row walked over. The man in the black t-shirt was no longer with them. Lu Qing habitually checked his phone again. Then he slowly got up and went to the cashier to pay the bill. He lowered his voice and asked, "I think the silver ornament store opposite is pretty good. What do you think of the boss?" The cashier glanced at him warily. Seeing his sincere attitude, she answered vaguely, "He's pretty stingy and shameless." Her voice got softer and softer. If it weren't for Lu Cheng's excellent hearing, he wouldn't have heard the last 2 words. So he asked around. Half of the people didn't answer, and the other half kindly reminded him. He had a rough idea of Li Wanquan's appearance in his mind. Then he walked into the silver jewelry shop and saw the shop owner, who was around 50 years old with bright triangular eyes. "What do you want to buy?" Li Wanquan asked lazily when he saw Lu Qing walking towards him, ignoring the shop assistant. Lu Qing smiled and took out his phone. He clicked on the photo of the flagon with the Do character on it and put it in front of Li Wanquan. "I heard this is from your store?" "Yeah." Li Wanquan perked up. His eyes lit up. "You want to buy it? There's more." "More?" Lu Qing asked in surprise. Li Wanquan didn't answer. He trotted to another counter and pulled out a small box. Inside were several purple gold flagons with the word Do engraved on them. "Not this one." "No, I don't have that feeling." "Do you understand?" "That feeling," Lu Qing said carefully, not revealing too much. Li Wanquan's face darkened. "That's my dad's work. This is mine. Is your dad still working on it?" Lu Qing asked. "He passed away 10 years ago. He only made 3 flagons like this. I was tricked by someone for a few dozen yuan and couldn't get a good price." Li Wanquan curled his lips. 3? Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat as he asked in astonishment. "It's not just the one in my master's hands. Doesn't that mean others can buy it too? That means the news could leak at any time?" Li Wanquan chuckled when he heard his question. "Do you still want to ask my father how he made this wine pot?" Lu Qing stared at him with narrowed eyes. He didn't answer. "You foreigners are so dishonest. 2 groups of people came to ask about it a while ago." Li Wanquan didn't stop until he was shocked. He even made a gesture of counting money with his hand. Chapter 442. 2 groups of people? Lu Qing narrowed his eyes and couldn't help but criticize his master in his mind. Isn't this a little too unreliable? Isn't he afraid that the fighting formula will be taken by others in advance? Why wait until I'm free? Is training more important than the fighting formula? Well, for master, it seems that he might really answer yes. He doesn't care about the 9 words formula at all. As he pondered, Lu Qing put away his other emotions and looked at Li Wanquan with a half-smile. 2 groups of people came to ask you? A while ago? You're still standing here. That means you didn't lie to them. Do you think I can make money by lying to you? Seriously? Li Wanquan said in a huff. He rubbed his thumb and index finger together and made a counting gesture. "I heard that there are consultants who can make money by answering questions, right? Bro, you're outdated. Go on Weibo more often. You can make money by answering questions." Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He smiled and said, "How much do you want?" 10,000. Li Wanquan's eyes flashed as he demanded an exorbitant price. Lu Qing laughed deliberately. "Why don't I ask Auntie Xiao and the others? They just said that they've been seeing some familiar faces coming to you recently. Maybe you know where they've been hanging around recently, right?" He was bluffing based on logic. If the 2 groups of people had succeeded, he could go to bed and leave the rest to the military. If they hadn't succeeded yet and ran into problems that required more information, it was very likely that they would come to Li Wanquan again and become the familiar face of a foreigner. It was impossible to tell whether or not the person was lying through their expressions or movements through the phone. Li Wanquan's eyes flickered. He forced a smile and said, "What do they know? How about this? Since you're so sincere, I won't ask for much. Just a few hundred will do." "Sure." Lu Qing looked at the counter and pointed at a silver amulet with delicate patterns. 800. At this. Okay. Li Wanquan took out the amulet swiftly. "Here you go." "Damn it, do you have to be so proactive? I still feel like I'm being cheated." Lu Qing took the amulet, took out his wallet, and counted the cash. He didn't plan to pay with his mobile phone because he didn't want to leave any information. Taking the 8 red notes, Li Wanquan beamed and said, "Go to 15 Wanha Street and find old Nanny Qiao. When my mother was still alive, my father was with her. During that time, he was often away from home. When he came back, he would give my mother the wine pot he made. Yes, the one you want. Old Granny Qiao, number 15, Wanha Street." Lu Qing memorized the name and continued. What kind of person is she? Li Wangquan lowered his voice and said, she was very mysterious. She didn't go out for a few days. But she was really handsome when she was young. Li Wangquan said in a low voice. She had a lot of lovers. They all trembled at the mention of her name. My father was the same. Lu Qing listened without saying anything. When he was out of the door, he found a resident of Zhengyan ancient city, who was willing to answer his questions. He indirectly verified Li Wanquan's words. Carrying his luggage, he glanced at his phone and started walking toward Wanha Street according to the map. This was a relatively quiet alley, and the buildings were well preserved in their appearance from more than 100 years ago. Without looking at the wires in the air and the air conditioner hanging on the wall, Lu Qing really felt like he was back in ancient times, wandering in the martial arts world. As he approached courtyard number 15, Lu Qing felt goosebumps all over his body. He sensed several gazes from the dark. He didn't stop and kept walking. He passed by old Nanny Chio's house and looked around leisurely, like a tourist passing by. When the scrutinizing eyes moved away from him, the door of courtyard number 15 opened with a creak. Lu Qing turned his head and saw the strong man in a black t-shirt walking out of the courtyard. His face was gloomy. He looked into the dark and said in a low voice, she's gone. Before he could finish his words, he suddenly grinned and laughed louder and louder. Ha 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 ha. The uncontrollable laughter echoed in the alley, which formed a strange contrast with the quiet atmosphere. Lu Qing didn't hide his surprise and perfectly played the role of a bystander. He even picked up his phone to take a video of the man in the black t-shirt who had lost his composure. Several vigorous men and women ran out of the dark and surrounded the man in the black t-shirt, blocking the view of the bystander. Dozens of seconds later, the man in the black t-shirt calmed down and gasped for breath. One of the men and women walked toward Lu Qing, deliberately shaking his muscles, trying to drive him away. Lu Qing shook his head slightly and didn't stay. He turned around and left. Old Nanny Chio is really weird. Now it seems that she has gone missing. How can I find her? Thoughts flashed through Lu Qing's mind one after another. He vaguely understood why his master wanted to use this incident to train him. A martial artist couldn't spend his life in the ring. The ability to deal with complicated things without relying on martial arts was very important. After that, Lu Qing didn't go to 15 Wanha Street anymore. Like a serious tourist, he wandered around Jingyan ancient city. He took a lot of photos, ate a lot of local specialties, and inquired about many things. During this time, he met the two girls in the back row again, but didn't see the man in the black t-shirt again. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, he was lying on the bed with his phone in hand, browsing the local news. Finally, a special reminder sounded. Yenjika sent a stretching emoji and said, finally got over the jet lag. I was sleepy before, but today I'm full of energy. Then she covered her mouth and laughed. Did they take a new picture of you after they asked you to? Beep beep beep. She replied to Lu Cheng's previous messages one by one, typing fast. I didn't pay attention. I guess it was. Lu Cheng began to talk about what he had seen today in high spirits. Once Yenjika was free, she would respond with interest. Before she went out, she sent a selfie and asked proudly, Cheng, what do you think of my outfit? She wore a pair of black-rimmed plain glasses, which covered half of her beautiful face. Her hair was tied into an ordinary hairstyle, and she was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. You don't have to be so old-fashioned, right? Lu Qing replied with a smile. Yenjika replied with a clenched fist emoji. Of course. I refuse to be harassed, concentrate on my studies, work hard, graduate early, and find my Cheng. Puffed, I'm afraid you'll feel depressed. Lu Qing was touched and happy to persuade her. No, studying makes me happy. Yenjika replied with an emoji of adjusting her sunglasses. They chatted intermittently, until Lu Qing went to bed. The next morning, he got up half an hour early to say goodnight to Yenjika, put on his dark martial arts suit, and ran to old Nanny Chio's house at number 15 Wanha Street. Based on his observation yesterday, he didn't go to the front door but to the side. He put his palm on the wall and jumped into the nearby yard in the dim night. He landed silently. After jumping over another wall, Lu Qing sneaked into old Nanny Chio's house, trying to find some clues. After what happened yesterday, there shouldn't be any danger here. With both feet on the ground, Lu Qing quickly scanned the scene in the yard with the help of the dim light in the dark. He saw that there were a lot of old broken bottles and jars. Some were filled with water, some were planted with flowers, some were planted with vegetables, and some were full of disgusting filth. The ground wasn't smoothed with cement. After a heavy rain in the middle of the night, it was muddy and there were 2 puddles. Lu Qing walked around them softly and approached the door. When he was about to open it, he heard a squeak, which was like a clap of thunder in the quiet dark at 5 o'clock in the morning. With a clap of thunder, the door suddenly opened. A ghostly figure, blurred by the darkness of the night, came face to face with Lu Qing in a narrow path. There was another martial artist who chose to explore this place in the early hours of the next day, just before sunrise, just like Lu Qing. Not only was Lu Qing startled, but the vague figure was also stunned. He took a deep breath and quickly made a forced concentration, hoping to strike first and open a path. With the absolute reaction, Lu Qing's hair stood on end. In his mind, he instantly sketched out the word army that was full of murderous intent. But he didn't say anything in case he was recognized. He just mixed this feeling with his own spirit and released it as a terrifying momentum. The black figure, whose right arm swelled and was about to punch, suddenly shivered and slowed down. Lu Qing lowered his waist and gathered and released his qi and blood. He used his fist as an iron hammer and smashed at the figure. Bang! With a muffled sound, the black figure hurriedly parried and staggered backward. Lu Qing swung his right fist back, borrowed the strength, and made a forced concentration. The combination was as smooth as flowing water. Bang! 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 He punched and kicked 3 times in a row, sending his opponent flying backward. Lu Qing didn't stop. He glanced around and memorized the scene in old Nanny Chio's room. Then he retreated and quickly flipped over the wall. In less than 10 seconds, he was back on the route of his morning exercise. In the room, the black figure knocked over old Nanny Chio's table. He was desperate and wanted to make a last struggle. But when he rolled away and stood up, he saw that the door was empty. It was dark and quiet. There was no enemy. The previous storm of attacks was like a dream. The black figure was stunned. He took a deep breath and didn't dare to stay any longer. He rushed out of the room and escaped from old Nanny Chio's house before others came. He was vigilant all the way, looking back from time to time. He took several detours before he entered the guest house. "Senior brother, how was it? Did you find anything?" His junior brother and sister, who were waiting for him, surrounded him. The black figure was a strong man in his late 20s. Hearing the question, he said anxiously, "Nothing, but I met a master." "A master?" His junior sister blurted out in surprise. "Yes." The black figure nodded solemnly, as if he had returned to the past. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a figure standing silently outside. His back was shimmering, and his face was completely blurred, as if he had completely blended into the darkness. Before he made a move, he felt like he was trapped in a desperate situation. His body and mind trembled, and he almost couldn't resist. But the opponent's next attack was like a stormy sea, breaking his stance in 3 or 4 moves and making him feel like he was about to die. But under such circumstances, the opponent was gone, as if he had never been there. Thinking of this, the black figure realized that his back was covered in cold sweat, soaking his clothes. "Quick, report to the sect and ask them to send a master," he said hurriedly. His junior brother frowned. "We haven't found old Nanny Chio yet. Isn't it too early to ask the elders for help?" "No, it'll be too late if we wait until we find old Nanny Chio," the black figure said resolutely. Chapter 443. The man in the black t-shirt is one group of people, and the guy I just met is another. Li Wangquan really wasn't lying. Lu Qing left Wanhe Street thoughtfully, putting the matter at the back of his mind for the time being. He went to a secluded place he had found the day before and concentrated on practicing the swordsman formula and the unique skills of the ice sect, improving himself little by little. At 8 in the morning, he packed up his frame and went back the same way he had come. When he passed by a breakfast shop, he stopped and bought 4 big steamed buns, the kind that was oily and full of meat. Snap. He took a photo and sent it to Yenjuka with a snickering emoji. I read the comments online that this shop's steamed buns are pretty good. I just took a few bites, and it lives up to its name. But I didn't dare to buy too many for fear of scaring the owner. I had to go to the stalls one by one. It was almost dinner time. The girl quickly replied with a picture of the dining table. There were many dishes on it, including fried steak and stewed beef brisket with potatoes. It was a combination of Chinese and Western. The presentation was beautiful, but the taste was unknown. Come on, let's hurt each other, Yenjuka said, slamming the table. Luqing couldn't help but laugh. His mood improved and his appetite increased. He ate 7 breakfasts in a row and returned to the inn-style hotel in satisfaction. After more than an hour, Yenjuka finished her other business in intermittent chatting. She sent a video call request, which Luqing had been waiting for a long time. After a fleeting buffer, the girl appeared in the picture. She was wearing a nightgown that exposed her delicate collarbone, and covered with a quilt with a fresh pattern. Her hair was down and draped lazily behind her back. Without the glasses on her nose, her eyes sparkled. She was so beautiful that Luqing couldn't take his eyes off her. Say something. Why do you keep looking at me? Yenjuka tilted her head and raised her chin slightly. Because you're pretty, Luqing said half jokingly, half sincerely. Yenjuka's eyes curved into crescents. She spat. You're exaggerating. They flirted for a while before the girl changed the topic out of concern for Luqing. Chung, did you find anything at old Nanny Chio's? No, I bumped into a colleague before I entered the house. After a few rounds, I realized that I had alerted the others, so I left. But judging from the situation in the yard, old Nanny Chio is indeed as mysterious, gloomy, and weird as the rumors say. Luqing truthfully described what he had seen and heard in front of his wife. You even had a fight. Yenjuka focused on the main point she was most concerned about. Luqing coughed twice and said, It's nothing. After all, we live in a society governed by law. Who dares to hurt people casually? It's just a few moves, and there was no killing intent. For others, it's not worth taking such a risk for a secret method. Especially since both sides were stage martial artists. They were definitely the backbone of their respective forces. If something were to happen to them, neither side would let the matter rest. A secret method was indeed precious, but it wasn't enough to put one in jail for half a life. If it didn't involve the mystery of the Jindan in his body, Luqing might not even have been interested in it. Some things were more like embellishments and icing on the cake. Therefore, he noticed that the black shadow was obviously restraining himself when he punched at the beginning. You're right. Yenjuka nodded slightly. She rolled her eyes and said thoughtfully, Chung, yesterday you said that your master didn't care much about the 9 words formula, and wasted a lot of precious time to train you. Let me think about it. Something seems wrong. Your master doesn't care about it, but what about the military? Aren't they also collecting the 9 words formula for research? Are they willing to take the risk of losing the fighting formula until you're free? Luqing was stunned, and the doubts in his heart suddenly cleared up. That's right. Seniors like the Queen of Thought and the Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame were very concerned about the 9 words formula. The military had no reason to watch the loss of the fighting formula just because of their master's capricious request to train his disciple. The reason why they didn't do anything and didn't intervene was because everything was under control so far. Those 2 groups of people weren't big forces, so the military was confident they could handle them. But shouldn't the focus be on old Nanny Chio? Once this key figure disappeared completely, the military would be at a loss, right? They haven't done anything yet because they've been monitoring the situation and keeping track of old Nanny Chio's whereabouts, so they're confident of my safety. Before the situation goes out of control, they're giving me a chance to train for my master's sake? Phew. In that case, they must be waiting for me to ask for help so that they can settle this matter openly. Thinking about this, Luqing understood the whole story. He was like a child. Under the supervision of his parents, he was playing a game that seemed risky but was actually as stable as a dog. And the parents were proudly waiting for the child to ask for help. As a child, Lu Cheng's competitive spirit was immediately aroused. He wanted to do this beautifully and not rely on the military. He wanted to get the fighting formula before they interfered. I can't be underestimated. I can't let my parents get what they want. Lu Cheng's laziness was gone, and he told Yanzhika his speculations and ideas. Yes, Brother Cheng, you can do it. Don't let the military have a chance. Yanzhika clenched her fists and replied cheerfully, trying to encourage him in a coquettish tone. I'm indeed the smartest person in the family. With the military's supervision, she was completely relieved. After Yanzhika said goodnight, and reluctantly went to warm the bed with the Empress Dowager, Lu Qing felt an indescribable sense of loss. After a moment of contemplation, he opened his notebook and began to organize his thoughts by writing. My advantage is that I'm wearing glasses, short hair, and a disguise. Even if they've watched the national competition on TV, they won't recognize me unless they're familiar with me in daily life. The other two groups of people either don't know about my existence or don't know who I am, so they can take advantage of me. My disadvantage is that I'm hiding in the shadows without the help of the military, so I can't collect as much information as the other two groups of people. After that, Lu Cheng began to write down the possible ways to find old Nanny Qiu. First, I can ask for help from the authorities and the police. Second, the ancient city has a dark side and may be more well-informed. The locals have mentioned several times that even Zhou Wei suffered a loss because of old Nanny Qiu. Obviously, she's not an ordinary person. I can start from this clue. Third, I can follow the other two groups of people and use their information as my information. If they have a certain amount of power, they'll probably use the government's resources. First, I can combine them here. Fourth, I'll go to old Nanny Qiu's house at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning and look for clues. After he finished writing, Lu Qing read carefully, combined and diverged, and finally concluded 3 things to do today. First, find out who Zhou Wei is and look for him secretly. Second, the other group of people is more secretive and I don't have any clues yet. The man in the black t-shirt is in the open. While doing the first thing, I'll look for him and the other fighters who showed up yesterday. If there's no other way, I'll follow the 2 girls in the back row. That guy is very interested in romance and may contact them. Third, I'll go to number 15 Wanha Street again. After finishing the plan, Lu Qing took his phone and wallet and left the room for lunch. In order to hide his identity, he insisted on eating less but eating more. Like yesterday, he would share his lunch in different restaurants so that no one would notice his unusual appetite. After calling his sect for help, Ho Yulin took a short nap and did his daily exercise. Under the dazzling sunlight, he walked to the Li family's silver jewelry shop. The elder couldn't leave immediately or fly, so he had to take the high-speed rail or a bus and wouldn't arrive until tomorrow morning. Before that, he couldn't do nothing but wait here. The new master who showed up last night shouldn't be from there. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to investigate in the middle of the night. He could find old Nanny Qiu's house through Li Wangquan. Maybe he could get some information from the silver jewelry shop in case one of them was in the light while the other was in the dark. Ho Yulin couldn't help but shudder at the thought of the master he met in old Nanny Qiu's house in the early morning. It was like a nightmare imprinted in his mind. Every time he recalled it, he would break out in a cold sweat. What a formidable master! I should avoid him as much as possible after getting some information. Ho Yulin looked up at the plaque with the words, Li Family's Silver Jewelry Shop, and walked in. The triangular-eyed Li Wangquan glanced at the plaque and greeted him happily. He asked expectantly, "What do you want to ask today?" These foreigners, if they are not good at anything else, they are very generous. Ho Yulin took out his wallet, counted a stack of money, and handed it to him. While complaining that he was so outdated that he couldn't scan the QR code to pay and was uneasy to monitor, Ho Yulin asked calmly, "Who else came to ask about old Nanny Qiu these days?" Li Wangquan counted the money happily and said, Yes, a young man came to ask about her. He was about 23 or 24 years old, wearing a white shirt, jeans, and a pair of big black-rimmed glasses. He had a kind smile. A young man about 23 or 24 years old. He showed such formidable strength last night. Which force did he belong to? Ho Yulin pondered and asked a few more questions. Then he turned and left the silver jewelry shop. When he came to the street, he looked around casually, instinctively looking for a young man about 23 or 24 years old, wearing a white shirt, jeans, and black-rimmed glasses. Well, there's one over there. There's one over there, 3 for. After walking 2 streets, Ho Yulin saw a total of 5 people with similar characteristics. So common. Ho Yulin complained and gave up the search. He began to suspect that the person Li Wangquan mentioned was the master he met last night. He must have hired an ordinary young man to ask about him to avoid being exposed. That's very likely. That's what I felt when I met him last night. Ho Yulin withdrew his gaze from the rice noodle shop. Lu Qing was sitting there, quietly drinking the fresh and delicious soup. Chapter 444. As for Zhou Wei, the residents of Zhengyan ancient city, who were willing to tell Lu Qing about old Nanny Qiu, felt it was a taboo. No one dared to say too much. Lu Qing had been busy for a while but still couldn't find anything. As for the man in the black t-shirt and the martial artists who were monitoring 15 Wanha Street, they seemed to have hidden themselves or were waiting for something. In such a large ancient city, it was not easy to meet them. Lu Qing had no choice but to target the 2 girls in the back row. He had met them several times yesterday, and knew which inn they were staying in. After waiting for a while, he finally saw 2 familiar figures around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. One of them was beautiful with a slender figure, and the other was ordinary with an artistic look. After a short rest, they set off again. Lu Qing followed them from a distance with his mobile phone. If they looked back, he pretended to be wandering around and taking photos. The 2 girls walked and stopped, laughing, looking at local specialties and listening to local musical instruments. They didn't look like they were looking for dinner. Instead, they seemed to be following fate. After following them for more than half an hour, Lu Qing was a little impatient. He walked to the front and met them by chance. Then he got closer and eavesdropped on their conversation. "Cece, look, it's him again." The artistic girl pointed at Lu Qing. The pretty girl frowned her thin eyebrows and said, "It's true. He seems to be following us all the time." "Haha, he must be attracted by your beauty, but doesn't dare to talk to you. I saw him several times yesterday." The artistic girl gossiped. "But our Cece won't like such a boring, timid, and unhandsome otaku." Cece bit her lower lip and said with fear, "Shin, don't say that. It's so scary. What if he's a bad guy or a pervert?" It was like running into a stalker. "You're right." Ashin also felt a bit uneasy. "It's daytime and there are so many people here. I don't think he'll do anything. I think he just admires you and doesn't have the guts to talk to you. He just wants to look at you." Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He didn't expect that his stalking would be discovered so soon, and that he would be regarded as a stalker. "Hey, I don't look like a pervert." "No, that's not the main point. Are my tracking skills that bad?" The answer is very definite. I don't have any tracking skills at all." He had never followed anyone before, so he didn't know what to avoid and what to pay attention to. Lu Qing almost covered his face and sighed. He hurriedly unlocked his phone and sent a message to his wife while following Cece and Shun. He described what had happened just now and expressed his grievances. Then he clicked open the browser app, entered the search page, and hurriedly typed a few words. "Tailing skills. Bah, it's more like a tracking technique." Lu Qing changed his words in a self-deprecating manner, wondering sadly if the other party would call the police. At this time, Cece pretended to be looking for something and quickly glanced sideways. She was so scared that she hurriedly turned her head and said, "He's still here, still here. What should we do?" Shin was also nervous. "Should we call the police? It's useless. He didn't do anything. How about we finish our meal and go back to the hotel?" Cece was a little flustered. Shin shook her head solemnly. "He'll find out where we live. Cece, let's ask Brother Huang for help. He still owes us a meal. He said he would hang out with us these 2 days, but we didn't see him." "Brother Huang." Cece was obviously convinced. "Yeah, Brother Huang looks so strong and says he's a fighter. It should be easy for him to scare away a cowardly pervert. Listen to me. The bad guys should be punished by the bad guys. The more Shin thought about it, the more convinced she was. Then she smiled in a low voice. And Brother Huang looks at you in a weird way. How can he let go of such a good opportunity to save a damsel in distress? You've been out of love for almost 3 months. You should give yourself a chance to be free. Well, I'll ask him if he's free. Cece picked up her phone and switched to WeChat. She clicked on Huang Zihua, who she had just added yesterday, and typed a lot of words. After a few minutes, she said happily, "He said he'll take care of this and asked us to meet him at Ian Bridge." Good, as expected of a pretty girl. Shen deliberately looked back at Lu Cheng, only to see that he was still following them, pretending to be looking at his phone. Well, I've found Brother Huang in the black t-shirt. Although I've achieved my goal, why don't I feel happy at all? Lu Cheng thought and sighed inwardly. He planned to continue following the two girls until they were close to Ian Bridge. He didn't want to miss them if they changed their meeting point midway. Well, I have to learn some tracking skills on the way. After all, my target is a dance stage fighter. Go straight, turn again, go straight again. Cece suddenly handed her phone to Shen and said in a low voice, "Look." Shen took the phone in confusion and looked at it. Brother Huang said, "Don't be surprised that I didn't wait for you at Ian Bridge. I'll hide nearby so that the stalker won't run away. I have to teach him a lesson." Brother Huang is really... Shen didn't say much but gave Cece a thumbs up in surprise and joy. She was looking forward to what was going to happen next. Yes, Cece had the same feeling. That kind of pervert should be taught a lesson. Although he admires me. After walking for another 10 minutes or so, seeing that they were approaching the street where Ian Bridge was located, the two girls couldn't help but slow down their pace. They waited for Brother Huang to suddenly appear, grab the stalker behind them, drag him into the alley, and teach him a good lesson. If they didn't do this on the street, it would be easy to attract onlookers, and it would be easy for the stalker to bite them back. Lu Cheng decided to go ahead and stop following them. However, as soon as he moved, he felt that he was being stared at. Unexpectedly, the man in the black t-shirt appeared in front of him and ran towards him. Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. Instead of dodging, he allowed the other party to approach him. The other party stretched out his arm in an exaggerated manner and grabbed Lu Cheng's shoulder tightly. Lu Cheng smiled ominously. "Let's go there and have a chat." Lu Cheng sighed. His stalking plan was ruined. He pretended to be trembling and didn't dare to resist. He was dragged to a quiet alley nearby. Yes, Cece and Shen blurted out in unison. Brother Huang is really awesome. That stalker is like a child compared to him. They turned around and walked into the alley. They wanted to see what was going on, but didn't dare to. In the alley, Brother Huang, the man in the black t-shirt, let go of Lu Cheng and cracked his knuckles. He put on a ferocious smile and said, "Brat, you're really something. How dare you follow a girl? If I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know that I have 3 eyes." At this moment, he saw the man wearing black-rimmed glasses raise his hands and form a hand seal. He suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Army." This. Huang Zihua's mind buzzed, and he felt as if his entire body was covered by layers upon layers of the ferocious aura of the battlefield, and he had fallen into a state of being suppressed by ghosts. He clearly knew that something was wrong, yet no matter how he struggled, he couldn't wake up. At this moment, Lu Cheng connected them tightly and calmly visualized the frozen river. He adjusted the waves created by his muscles, fascia, and internal organs, and then quickly switched to the scene of thunderclouds shaking. Bang! He punched out. Severe warning. Huang Zihua, the man in the black t-shirt, had just broken free from the army formula when his vision turned black, and he suddenly lost consciousness. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. I've been in Jianghu for so many years and I've survived all kinds of hardships. Now I'm doomed. Thump. Lu Cheng raised his hand and hit Huang Zihua again. Huang Zihua's mind and body were frozen at the same time, so he passed out completely. In broad daylight and at such a close distance, as long as he resisted, his opponent would be able to figure out who he was. Therefore, he didn't need to hide anything. Glancing at the entrance of the alley, Lu Cheng squatted down and found the man's phone. He tried one by one with the man's fingerprint and finally unlocked it. After checking the man's WeChat chat history, Lu Cheng roughly figured out the current situation. The man's name was Huang Zihua. He was the backbone of a sect called Zhengfa School, which had some connections with Daxing Temple. Old Nanny Chio's disappearance that day was very strange. The surveillance didn't notice anything, and the police found nothing either. They had to use all kinds of resources to inquire about the situation from old Nanny Chio's former lover. But so far, the results were not very good. It seems that I haven't fallen behind. Lu Cheng put the phone back into Huang Zihua's pocket and pinched his philtrum to wake him up. After that, Lu Cheng didn't go back the way he came. Instead, he went out of the alley and merged into the crowd. Outside the alley, Cici and Shen waited for a while, and then walked in curiously. After a few steps, they suddenly saw the strong man in the black t-shirt lying against the wall with his eyes closed. He was unconscious. They were stunned. Their pupils contracted and they let out a short scream, unable to believe what they had seen. What happened just now? Why was Brother Huang, who was supposed to teach the stalker a lesson, taught a lesson? Why does this matter feel so strange? Disturbed by the scream, Huang Zihua woke up completely and opened his eyes. Seeing the familiar scene in the alley, he was relieved. He knew that the master he had just encountered didn't want to kill him. The army formula. A unique skill that can freeze the mind. Clues to the fighting formula. Very young. At this moment, one thought after another appeared in Huang Zihua's mind, strung together into a line, and finally fixed on the slightly stiff face from before. It's him? Huang Zihua was startled and stood up abruptly. Ignoring Cici and Shen's confused and scared eyes, he took out his mobile phone and called the sect. Then he said solemnly, "Brother, I'm here. Lu Cheng is here." Chapter 445. The name Lu Cheng meant a lot. Lu Cheng was a peerless genius, one of the few fighters below the inhuman stage. He was almost as powerful as Peng Liyun before his breakthrough. They were no match for him at all. Therefore, they had to ask one of the most powerful elders of their sect to come here and set off immediately. Lu Cheng was not alone. He had the support of the Ice God sect. He might have come here carelessly without informing his sect, but in this situation, he had to ask for help. Even if the Ice God sect had little influence in the provinces and cities around the ancient city, they still had a lot of masters. Any two of them would be beyond his power to contend with. Well, the elders had to come here before tomorrow morning and search for old Nanny Chio within one day. If they couldn't find her and get the clue of the fighting formula, they would leak this information to Daxing Temple and try to get something out of it. All kinds of thoughts flashed through the mind of Huang Zihua, the man in the black t-shirt. His tone and expression were solemn as he tried to get help from the other side of the phone. His words were concise and comprehensive, and he did not say much. Everything was contained in those two simple words. After hanging up the phone, Huang Zihua calmed himself down and glanced at Cici and Shen. He nodded reluctantly and said, "I've got something to do. I'll treat you to dinner later." The mysterious disappearance of old Nanny Chio had put him under a lot of pressure. He didn't have the time to flirt with girls until he received Cici's message. He wanted to relax and clear his mind to see if he could get some inspiration. Now that a powerful figure was here and the situation had changed drastically, he didn't have the time to chat with girls. Okay. Cici and Shen looked at each other in confusion. They didn't know what was going on at the moment, so they answered in confusion. Then Cici instinctively added worriedly, "Brother Huang, that stalker won't come again, right?" Huang Zihua gazed at her and said, Don't worry, his target is not you." Then he walked out of the alley and returned to the inn, leaving the two girls standing there in a daze. Not me. The unconscious Brother Huang. The stalker didn't show up. Cici looked at Shen and suddenly had some guesses. We seem to be involved in something serious. I'm afraid that the stalker is looking for Brother Huang. I'm just a cover. After understanding this, Cici was both relieved and scared. She felt curious and inexplicably disappointed. At this moment, Shen frowned and murmured to herself, "Lu Cheng, this name sounds familiar." Now that his identity had been exposed, Lu Qing knew that Huang Zihua would definitely ask for help. He wasn't willing to ask for help from his parents, unless he was in a desperate situation. Therefore, he packed a lot of food and returned to the inn. While eating, he analyzed and pondered over the information he had received from Huang Zihua. He wanted to speed up his progress and try to be one step ahead of Huang Zihua. Through the authorities, they found the local tyrant, Zhou Wei, but they didn't get any useful information. They had sent people to keep an eye on Li Wangquan, hoping that old Nanny Chiu would walk into the trap. For this eccentric and mysterious woman, it was very likely that she would retaliate after being betrayed by Li Wangquan. Some of them were still keeping an eye on 15 Wanha Street, fearing that old Nanny Chiu might come home to fetch something. Lu Qing didn't come up with any new discoveries after going through his mind. He just eliminated a lot of possibilities. Before he knew it, it was almost 8:30 in the evening. His cell phone rang with a special reminder. Yin Zheka sent a laughing emoji. Haha, such a funny thing this early in the morning. Hello, pervert Chung. What can I do? I'm also helpless. I don't know how to follow people. Lu Qing sent a crying emoji. It wasn't a good experience to be a pervert, except in front of Ku. What do the two girls look like? Yenjika sent a laughing emoji. They're so. I can recognize them if I see them, but I can't remember them if I don't see them. Lu Qing thought of something and answered with a little exaggeration. Yenjika sent a biting emoji. You're lying. If they're not pretty, why would Huang Zihua hit on them? After all, he's at the dance stage. Maybe it's because it's hard for me to go from luxury to frugality. Lu Qing saw that his little fairy had fallen into his trap and sent a laughing emoji. Yenjika paused for a moment before replying. I almost laughed out loud and spat out the milk. My mom looked at me strangely. Oh, by the way, have you found any clues? She was in a good mood and brought the topic back to the right track. Does it count as a clue if all the clues are gone? Lu Qing told his wife what he had concluded. Yes. Yenjika sent a contemplative emoji with her hands on her chin. According to mystery novels, we have to go back to the starting point and start again. Since we can't figure out how old Nanny Chiu left the yard, we have to go back to the place where she disappeared and start again. So, I plan to go to old Nanny Chiu's house at 3 in the morning to see if there are any clues left by others. They can't find it, but it doesn't mean I can't. Not many people below the level of physical invulnerability can master a unique skill like Ice Mirror. Lu Qing said tacitly. Hee hee, husband and wife think alike. Yenjika replied with a laughing emoji. The pleasant conversation became intermittent after Yenjika packed up and left the house. However, the intermittent conversation didn't last long because it was time for Lu Qing to sleep and recover his energy. After saying goodnight, he sighed and entered meditation. He fell into a deep sleep. At 3 in the morning, the alarm clock rang. Lu Qing woke up at once and became energetic again. After changing into his dark martial arts suit, he told Yenjika and himself, let's go. In the dead of night, the lights were lonely. Lu Qing walked in the dark and soon arrived at 15 Wanha Street. Relying on his keen senses and previous experience, he found 2 hidden posts. He waited patiently. When a drunkard passed by and attracted the attention of the hidden posts, he jumped over the wall like a big black bird and directly entered old Nanny Chiu's yard. He landed silently and pounced forward like a civet cat. Lu Qing opened the door gently and entered the room, closing the door behind him. Under the starlight, he saw everything in the room, including many antique utensils, paintings, and decorations. It was said that old Nanny Chiu didn't like calligraphy and paintings. Lu Qing was puzzled and checked them one by one, but still found no valuable clues. He looked carefully from the living room to the bedroom, from the bedroom to the kitchen, but found nothing. Lu Qing had no choice but to stop thinking and visualize the ice mirror. He calmed himself down and reflected every detail within dozens of centimeters around him. Everything appeared. He walked back step by step according to the route he had taken just now. He felt that the surroundings were quiet and peaceful, without any unusual changes. From the kitchen to the bedroom, from the bedroom to the living room, Lu Qing suddenly heard a heartbeat, but it wasn't his own heartbeat. Thump. His scalp went numb. He stopped and listened attentively, ready to attack with all his might. After a full minute, a second plop sounded from the bottom of his heart. Thump, thump, thump. The heartbeat was slow and low, as if it came from the depths of the earth, like the call of an evil ghost. Lu Qing took a deep breath. The ice mirror in his heart was still there, and he got rid of all the creepy thoughts. A few minutes later, he stepped back and looked at the spot where he had just stepped. The floor of the living room was untouched, only compacted with soil. And the weird heartbeat came from under the soil. It's here. Damn, what the hell is this? Lu Qing swallowed his saliva. His mind raced and he had a few guesses. He suddenly sat down with his legs crossed and visualized the corresponding ancient word for army. His aura immediately spread outward, like a doomsday snowstorm that darkened the sky, lowered the temperature, and pressed down on the ground where the terrifying heartbeat came from. Thump. Lu Qing sat cross-legged and reached out his right hand. With the help of his aura, he clenched his fist and knocked lightly on the ground. He said in a low voice, "Come out. Come out. I won't do anything to you." As soon as his voice fell, a strange change occurred. The ground seemed to be wriggling, and colorful little insects drilled out one after another. They rushed up along his fist that was touching the ground like a tide. They were so dense that it made people tremble both physically and mentally. Lu Qing shook his head. The surface of his fist was suddenly ignited with a violent red flame. The colorful bugs were burned black before they could do anything. They fell like rain. When there were only a dozen bugs left, they finally stopped flying like moths to the flame. A small, slightly wrinkled hand poked out of the compacted soil. It was not big and looked like a woman. In the strange scene, another hand, head, torso, and feet all crawled out of the ground, outlining an old woman in dark red clothes. Old Nanny Chiu? Lu Qing secretly exhaled, withdrew his aura, and asked with a smile. The old woman, with a straight face and a slightly trembling body, corrected him. Chiu Huazhen. Sure enough. Lu Qing looked her up and down, and found that she didn't look old except for the white hair on her head. She was dignified and elegant, not at all strange and scary as the rumors said. Well, she used to be a beauty with many pursuers. Lu Qing nodded. Supernatural power? If old Nanny Chiu was strong, she wouldn't have to hide in this way. But she could hide in the soil and not come out for days like hibernation. It's hard for anyone below the level of physical invulnerability to do that. Yes. Chiu Huazhen stared at him coldly. What do you want? Lu Qing was about to take out the picture of the fighting formula flagon when he suddenly had an idea. He looked at the decorations and said, "These are all antiques, right?" You know. Chiu Huazhen's face changed dramatically. Not much, Lu Qing answered vaguely. You should tell me yourself. Old Nanny Chiu and her gang must be a grave robber gang. No wonder they could find something related to the fighting formula. Maybe they have killed people before. That's why they didn't want to discuss with those two groups, and kept trying to escape. Chapter 446. Old Nanny Chiu's explanation was similar to Lu Cheng's conjecture. She had been able to hibernate like an animal when she was young, and could barely manipulate the soil. Later, she joined a grave-robbing gang and learned some basic voodoo. She often didn't go out of the house for a few days, because she had quietly left the ancient city. In the eyes of the neighbors, she became more and more mysterious and strange. Those who had lived with her for a period of time felt that she was even more strange. Sometimes they felt a sense of horror and didn't dare to talk too much about her. The items related to the fighting formula were obtained during this process. Since most of them were damaged, the gang leader didn't value them much. Since Nanny Chiu liked similar items, he simply gave them to her and asked her to take them home, just like the broken bottles and jars outside her room. Once, they had a lot of loot and sold it for a lot of money. Internal strife broke out in the gang. Someone tried to kill the leader with a sneak attack. Chiu Huazhen took advantage of her supernatural ability and voodoo to take most of the money and items. She fled back to her hometown, where the other members didn't know. Since then, she rarely went out and lived a peaceful life. She would only sell 1 or 2 items when she needed money. Old Nanny Chiu had been living like this for years, until two groups of people suddenly came knocking on her door. She was ill-informed and didn't know anything about the 9 words formula. She didn't believe that the item related to the fighting character in her possession had any value. She suspected that the descendants of the gang members had found her and were waiting for helpers to gather. She couldn't help but feel terrified, but she didn't dare to call the police and walk right into the trap. She used witchcraft to temporarily intimidate the two groups of people. Under their surveillance, during the noisiest time of the day, she took a few of the most valuable items and sank into the ground. She planned to hibernate for half a month. This was also the limit of her supernatural ability. She would only escape when the people at the door no longer paid attention to this place. She was smart enough to get a fake identity in another city and own 2 houses. She only stayed in Zhengyuan because she didn't want to leave the hometown she was familiar with. I've said all I want to say. What do you want? Old Nanny Chiu looked at Lu Cheng with cold and fearful eyes. She wasn't very strong, but her witchcraft was mysterious. That was why she didn't dare to fight the two groups of people head-on. She had to think of a way to escape. Facing the powerful and terrifying martial artists in front of her, it was hard for her to have any thoughts of resistance. Lu Qing sighed to himself and smiled. Where's the jade pendant with the word "do" on it? Just for this? Old Nanny Chiu asked in surprise, her face full of confusion. Back then, that thing was just a piece of junk in the eyes of the leader. If it wasn't for its beauty, he wouldn't have wanted it. I'm just looking around. Lu Qing replied calmly. Old Nanny Chiu glanced at him suspiciously and took out a jade pendant from her pocket. The pendant had a unique pattern and a delicate design. In the center of the pendant, there was a word "fighting" engraved on it, as if it was a work of God. The word "fighting" meant that it would never admit defeat. Lu Qing lifted his eyelids slightly and sized up the jade pendant. Due to the passage of time, the Inqi had corroded it and damaged it severely. Even the charm of the fighting character was only left with a faint trace. To others, it was impossible to use it to practice any secret method. But to him, all he needed was a primer to induce the Jindan to resonate. That was enough. Keeping his expression unchanged, he squinted his eyes and signaled old Nanny Chiu to put the jade pendant close to him. He tried to comprehend the essence and charm of the fighting character. After 7 or 8 minutes, he managed to visualize a vague fighting character with a very faint charm. He formed a seal with both hands, one in front of the other, and pointed to his dantian. He then opened his mouth and said in a low voice, "My name is Fighting." Fighting. With an illusory buzzing sound, Lu Qing felt the Jindan in his lower abdomen tremble under the influence of the fighting character in his mind. Ripples appeared one after another. The dazzling stars and scorching grand sun moved quickly and formed a fighting character that was powerful, domineering, terrifying, and full of explosive power. The charm of never lowering one's head to face everything was as real as it could be. Connected in reverse, the visualization diagram in Lu Cheng's mind changed rapidly and presented the correct form, leaving a deep impression on him. Fighting. Under old Nanny Chiu's astonished gaze, Lu Cheng opened his mouth again, his ancient voice echoing. His muscles bulged and his momentum soared into the sky, overflowing with a strong fighting spirit. Old Nanny Chiu couldn't help but move back a little because of the explosive power. The fighting formula increased one's strength for one explosive strike. The better he practiced it and the better he mastered it, the more terrifying the result would be. It's a bit like Kaioken. Lu Cheng thought in delight as he finally mastered the fighting formula. However, the fighting formula hadn't increased his strength by more than 30%, and he estimated that it would increase by 1 or 2 times at most in the future. Besides, the fighting formula was completed by stimulating the qi and blood, and squeezing the body. Once the limit was exceeded, the body would collapse and couldn't recover without a long period of recuperation. It might even leave serious hidden dangers. While using the fighting formula, he also noticed the changes in his Jindan. Not only did it move the stars and ripple the water, but it also seemed to have awakened the swordsman formula, forwarding formula, army formula, and attainment formula. They turned into 5 nodes in the vast universe and formed a relatively stable structure. His premonition of danger seemed to have become stronger, and his supernatural abilities of ice and fire were connected to it to a certain extent. They were no longer isolated from the inside and outside, but more distinct at the root pulp level, giving him a feeling that he could really influence them. Phew. I'll be able to open the door to the inhuman stage and begin to transform after some time of consolidation? Lu Qing nodded thoughtfully. After Peng Liyun recovered from his injury, he completed the transformation and received the certificate of 5th pin, officially stepping into the inhuman realm. As for Runli, it was said that she had entered the stage of accumulating strength to overtake others. At the end of July, she successfully pushed open the door of the inhuman realm. Well, I'm not that slow either. Lu Qing picked up the fighting jade pendant with a smile and said to old Nanny Chiao, "How much is it?" He decided to go back and carefully study the changes in his Jindan. "How much is it?" For a moment, old Nanny Chiao thought she had misheard him. At this stage, he could just take it away and she wouldn't dare to resist. After a moment of silence, she said, "It's not a good thing. 600. Actually, if you don't name a price, I'll keep it for you," said Lu Qing sincerely. "Anyway, I've already mastered the fighting formula. If I didn't want to keep it as a souvenir, I wouldn't even look at this jade pendant. And its actual value is only a few hundred in the eyes of others. Forget it. It's a troublemaker." Old Nanny Chiao raised her eyelids and answered dispiritedly. "Okay." Lu Qing touched his trouser pocket and suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He was afraid of a fight, so he only brought his cell phone and didn't bring his wallet. He felt his balls ache for more than 10 seconds and asked with a smile, "Can I pay with my cell phone?" "What?" Old Nanny Chiao was confused. Lu Qing cleared his throat and pretended to be normal. "I don't have money. I'll return the jade pendant to you." Old Nanny Chiao suddenly understood what was going on. After a moment of silence, she said, "Then I'll give it to you. I don't know what will happen to me if I keep it." "Okay. I'll put the money in your room later." Lu Qing put away the jade pendant and thought for a moment. "I told you I won't do anything to you. As long as you can avoid being found by others, I'll pretend I never came." Old Nanny Chiao nodded slightly and didn't say anything. She gathered the bug's body and lay down again. The hard soil suddenly softened and she and the bug sank into it. Then it solidified again and disappeared without a trace. Lu Qing turned around and carefully flashed out of the room. Before the hidden post noticed him, he had already jumped over the wall and disappeared into the night. Now that it was quiet, he looked at the jade pendant and called his wife with his cell phone. "I got it." After sending the message, he suddenly felt that it was unreal. The development of this matter was completely out of his expectations. Obtaining the fighting formula had been too easy. But on second thought, he felt relieved. This matter was actually very simple. If Huang Zihua and the others hadn't paid too much attention to it, and if it wasn't a coincidence that scared old Nanny Chiao, they would have gotten it long ago. Yin Zhika, who was in the afternoon, replied quickly with a dumbfounded expression. "Really? So fast?" Qing didn't leave for long. "Yeah." Lu Qing was proud of himself. He repeated the story with a smile and showed her the jade pendant. "It's really there." Yin Zhika was relieved at first. Then she clenched her fist and said, "Brother Qing is awesome. Sister Ku is awesome too." Pfft. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He happily replied with a few words and then said, "I'll teach you later." "Why can't I teach my wife the fighting formula I got with my own ability?" "Okay." Yin Zhika sat and waited obediently. "Go back and get some sleep. Don't wander around outside." "Okay, I'll tell my master first." Lu Qing thought for a while and suddenly said, "Forget it. I'll tell him in a few days." Since the military had everything under control and was watching his game, like a parent, he wouldn't say anything. Let's see when they get anxious and take action. "You're so naughty," Yin Zhika said after a while. Lu Qing was in a good mood. He hummed silently and returned to the inn. He didn't go back to sleep. Instead, he spent some time studying the changes in the Jindan. He was sure that under the guidance of his ice and fire supernatural abilities, he could smoothly trigger some of the energy inside the Jindan. As for the guidance, it would take time to figure it out. The rest of his gains were what he sensed at the first moment. 2 hours later, Lu Qing went out as usual and found a place to train until the sun rose from the east. At 10 in the morning, Hou Yulin and Huang Zihua saw the elders of their sect. Chapter 447. Where is Lu Qing? Fang Fakui, the elder of the Zhengfa sect, whose forehead bulged like the god of longevity, asked in a deep voice. Huang Zihua was prepared for this question. He went to old Nanny Chio's house last night to look for clues, but I don't think he got anything. He didn't go out except for practicing martial arts this morning. He found out which hotel Lu Qing was staying in through the police and sent someone to keep an eye on it. He didn't expect to stop Lu Qing, but just wanted to know what was going on as soon as possible. Okay. Fang Fakui nodded slowly. Send more people to keep an eye on old Nanny Chio. I don't believe that she hasn't shown any abnormality in front of others all these years. What about you? Huang Zihua blurted out in confusion. Fang Fakui turned to look out of the window. I'll go to old Nanny Chio's house again to see if you missed any clues. In the Li family's silver jewelry shop, the greedy and lazy Li Wangquan looked at the old man with thick eyebrows and small eyes and said in a trembling voice, I told you everything. The old man was Wan Shengjiang, Hou Yulin's martial uncle. He was as intimidating as a lion or a tiger. He asked coldly, really? Think about it again. Think about what your father told you about old Nanny Chio. Li Wangquan looked at Hou Yulin helplessly, only to find that Hou Yulin was admiring his silver jewelry and didn't care about it at all. His body and mind trembled as his thoughts raced. He remembered something and blurted it out. My father told me that she's actually very rich. She's a monster. After listening to Li Wangquan, Wan Shengjiang looked at his martial nephew and said thoughtfully, old Nanny Chio might have some supernatural ability to escape from the surveillance. I'll go and check again. There should be some clues left. Yulin, you split into 2 groups. One group keeps an eye on Lu Qing, and the other group doesn't hide anything. Follow the Zhengfa school. If we don't find anything today, we won't get anything. Yes, martial uncle. Hou Yulin said with a heavy heart. While the 2 groups of people were frantically searching for Yanzhika, Lu Qing was sitting in front of the desk in the room, video chatting with Yanzhika on the computer. The 2 of them didn't mention the fighting formula or the possible upheaval outside. Instead, they chatted about the interesting things the girl had encountered in the past few days as she settled down, went shopping, and registered for classes. They also shared the customs of different countries and regions. Just then, Lu Cheng's phone rang. A call came in. He picked it up and saw that it was his master. Thus, he made a hand gesture to Little Fairy and chose to accept the call. Hello, master. What's the matter? Lu Qing could vaguely guess the purpose of this call, so he pretended to be at a loss and asked. Geezer sure chuckled and said, you seem to have a lot of free time. Are you not anxious at all? Both sides have sent experienced experts over. Maybe Daxing Temple and the others will be involved. The military can't wait any longer. They plan to take over this matter. They asked you to stay aside and watch. Don't interfere. Sure. Lu Qing answered in a relaxed tone, which made Yanzhika burst into laughter on the screen. She pursed her lips and looked at him sideways. SSS, you brat. Something's not right. Cough, cough, are you hiding something from me, your master? Are you really not anxious? Aren't you afraid that the fighting formula will fall into the hands of others? Are you really willing to be completely outclassed by the military? I'm not anxious. Why should I be anxious? Lu Qing answered with a smile. I've already mastered the fighting formula. Cough, cough, cough. Geezer sure seemed to have taken a sip of wine and spat out something. After a while he said, when did you find the fighting formula? Not only did he find it, but he also mastered it. If it weren't for the dignity of a master, this old man would have asked a bunch of questions. Lu Qing briefly explained the matter from beginning to end. He didn't even hide the fact that he wanted to see the military make a fool of themselves. However, he didn't mention the abnormality of the Jin Dan. After all, his master had always acted like he didn't care much about it. You really do have an affinity with the 9 words formula. Geezer sure sighed and chuckled. It's good that you didn't mention it. Those guys are so arrogant. Damn, Master, you're a respected senior. How can you have the same bad thoughts as a child like me? Lu Qing complained. He chuckled and said, Master, you have to tell me about the military's reaction. He didn't have to wait here for a few days. Zhengyun Ancient City was such a big place that 2 or 3 days was the limit. It was hard to say when the military would realize something was wrong. Hey, you little brat, you're really asking for a beating. Go back and rest, then come to Wuxia province. The fighting formula still needs to be given to the military. You have to get the Emperor Yan force as soon as possible. Try to complete the sublimation of the 2 forces before you transform. Geezer sure smiled satisfactorily and instructed. Yes, Master. Lu Qing answered cheerfully. When he hung up, he saw Yanjika covering her mouth and giggling. Cheng, you two are indeed master and disciple. They really do have a tacit understanding in certain aspects. Lu Qing deliberately squinted at her. Are you mocking me for being as unreliable as my master? Yanjika turned her eyes and smiled. Her right hand made a phone call gesture. Hello, is this Coach Sure? Your disciple said you're unreliable. Hurry up and get rid of this evil creature. Lu Qing silently added the second half of the sentence for his wife. After the girl went to bed, he stood up and began to pack his luggage. He had no doubt that the military could find old Nanny Chiu. Large local forces might have 2 or 3 inhuman mighty ones and mini Dan stage masters, so they couldn't be underestimated. However, their numbers were too small, and their members were biased and monotonous. Unlike the military, they could find people who were good at fighting and good at tracking. That was why they had the confidence to not show up and watch their game, with a smile. Under such circumstances, how could old Nanny Chiu, who was only a dabbler in concealment, escape? At 2:30 in the afternoon, 2 strong men, one tall and one short, directly broke into number 15 Wanhe Street, ignoring the surveillance around them. Feng Fakue and Wan Shengjiang, who had returned in vain in the morning, hurried over with Huang Zihua and Hou Yulin. They were on high alert and looked on indifferently. The 2 men kept a straight face and didn't care about the gazes on them. They searched carefully from outside to inside. After repeating the same thing over and over again, they suddenly stopped in their tracks and stopped somewhere in the living room. They looked at each other and nodded slightly. The tall man suddenly squatted down and pounded the ground with his right hand, as if he was pounding medicine. Bam! Orange-red flames gathered in his hand and exploded when he pounded the ground, creating a shockwave that penetrated inside. Inhuman! Feng Fakue and Wan Xingjiang's pupils shrank, and their expressions became more solemn. Where did this inhuman mighty one come from? Ice God sect? That's not right. He used fire. Just as the hearts of the 2 groups of people slowly sank, the ground that was hit by the tall man suddenly softened, as if it had turned into a swamp. A slightly pale and wrinkled hand suddenly stretched out, leading to an old woman that everyone was familiar with. Her expression was gloomy as she muttered to herself, "You're right. I still couldn't escape." Old Nanny Chiu? She didn't escape at all. She had been hiding underground all this time. Huang Zihua and Hou Yulin were stunned at first, and then they were filled with regret. She actually had such a supernatural ability and means. If we had thought of this earlier, we wouldn't have been beaten to the ground by these 2 mighty ones. The tall man and the short man looked at each other and showed a relaxed and complacent smile. The tall man turned to old Nanny Chiu and said, "We can leave the rest of your business to the police. But where is the object with the word Do inscribed on it?" Old Nanny Chiu looked at him strangely and then she laughed. "Someone has taken it away." Who? Who took it? The tall man and the short man's smiles froze as they asked anxiously. Feng Fakue and the others were stunned and looked at each other. Someone came earlier? Who? Who? Old Nanny Chiu thought for a while and said, "A young man of medium height, wearing black clothes. He looks quite energetic. He came here last night." Came here last night. A name suddenly popped up in everyone's mind. Lu Qing. After getting rid of the surveillance, Lu Qing got on the bus leaving Jingyan Ancient City. It didn't take long for him to receive a call from his master and know what had happened there. Although it wasn't detailed enough, it was easy to imagine that he was amused for 5 minutes and typed a long message to Yenjika. At this moment he suddenly thought of something. He clicked on the military's rapid march, who was in charge of contacting him. Scratching head and smiling expression. Can you do me a favor? I still owe old Nanny Chio 600 yuan for the jade pendant. Can you help me? I'll transfer the money to you via QQ. He was quite nervous when he sent the message, expecting a reply of F***CK your mother. But Rapid March was quite restrained. After a few seconds of silence he replied with one word. Okay. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief and looked up. He happened to see the young couple he met on the way to the bus. They were also going back today. Lu Qing looked around and found that there were no more seats connected to each other. He stood up leisurely, pushed his black-rimmed glasses, and waved at them with a smile. Come on, sit here. I'll let you. Seeing his bright and friendly smile, the young couple looked at each other in surprise and felt that there were more good people in this world. After staying at home for a few days, Lu Qing, whose longing had almost turned into impulsiveness, set off on his journey again. He flew to Wuxia province to see his master. Give me the item of the fighting formula later and familiarize yourself with the illustration of the ice spirit force, said Geysersher casually. Oh, by the way, do you want to participate in a competition? The champion's prize is more than 5 million yuan. What competition? Lu Qing, who was eager to make money, asked. He couldn't practice the fighting formula with the jade pendant, but he could write one for the military since he had deepened his understanding. As for the effect and how long it would take for the jade pendant to lose its charm, that was another matter altogether. Geysersher laughed. The King of Youth tournament of 4 countries doesn't include our country. It's not broadcasted in our country either. This time, we're invited to participate in the competition with 4 wild cards. Young fighters under the age of 23 who aren't physical invulnerability. If you want to participate and use a different style of fighting to complete your transformation, I can help you get a spot. When? Which countries? Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. Dongying, Miluo, Xinxiang and Nanjing. August 12th to August 27th. Geysersher said with a smile. Other than the champion, the top 8 also have a lot of prize money. I don't know if Peng Liyun and Runli will go. Miluo and Nanjing used to be vassals of China and had deep ties with China. Okay. Lu Qing nodded. He looked at Geysersher and said seriously, Master, I want to participate. Chapter 448. Sure. Geysersher thought for a moment and added, Don't embarrass me. Miluo, Xinxiang, and Nanjing were the places where he had spent most of his time between the war-torn zones in China. He had plenty of acquaintances and friends. Master, do you have so little confidence in me? Lu Qing lampooned. He knew Shi Zhengwo's pride was at work again. After a dozen seconds of silence, Lu Qing asked curiously, Master, what kind of young experts are there in these 4 countries? How would I know? Why would an old man like me care about these juniors? Geysersher replied with a look of disdain. Anyway, there are definitely Inhumans but not many of them. Alright, hurry up and give me the fighting formula. Okay. Lu Qing had already observed the layout of his senior sister's house. As soon as he finished speaking, he bounced into the study. He unfolded the rice paper, pressed it with a paperweight, picked up the brush, and dipped it in ink. He took a deep breath, calmed his heart, and focused his mind. In his mind, he sketched out every stroke of the fighting character. Explosiveness, strength, dominance, vigor, and an unyielding spirit leaped out. His wrist hovered and the brush pressed down. The ink burned brightly as if it was about to burst out of the white paper and soar into the sky. When he was done, Lu Qing nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the spirited ink. This is much better than my usual signature. However, Meng Qi's energy, Qi spirit, and will had not yet reached the level of connecting with heaven and earth. The charm of the depiction could not be stabilized as time passed. At most 3 months, at least 1 month, this Dou character could no longer be used for visualization and practice. It could only be like the Qian character he wrote for Wang Su, suppressing certain emotions with the remaining feelings until it completely returned to normal after a few years. Anyway, I'll just write it for them when it's no longer effective. Besides, with the Queen of Thought and the Divine Enchanter of Sin Flames level, they should be able to master it within a month. Lu Cheng's thoughts wandered. He picked up the rice paper on the table, walked into the living room, and handed it to Geyser with a smile. Master, this is the fighting formula. That's it. Geyser asked in astonishment. Where's the fighting formula I got from old Nanny Chio? From his expression, Lu Cheng interpreted the meaning of "your King kidding me." He felt embarrassed and smiled. Master, old Nanny Chio's item is half broken. I restored the charm by myself, just like how I comprehended the attainment formula from the notes of Shushan's study. As he spoke, he scrolled through his phone and found the photo he had taken for Yenjika. He had left the jade pendant at home, and planned to bring it to Songqing in September. When he went to America, he would give it to his little fairy as a souvenir. Geyser glanced at it, coughed twice, and resumed his "I've seen everything" attitude. Like I said, you and the 9 words formula are connected by fate. You can say that the Longhu Immortal passed it on to you. As he spoke, he put away Lu Cheng's fighting formula, and changed the topic. Since you're here, you can go through the formalities and get a visa to America. Once the quota is approved, we'll deal with the King of Youth League. For the next few days, you should train hard here and suppress the transformation. Try to grasp the basics of the visualization of Ice Spirit Force as soon as possible. Speaking of this, he took out a rolled-up atlas from his pocket and said jokingly, "This is my legacy. This is a memento of your master when I was at my peak. Don't lose it, you brat. Originally, I was going to lend you Grandmasters for you to visualize, but after thinking about it for a while, martial arts have evolved for so many years. His comprehension, is a little unsuitable. It's better to use mine. Master, you're already able to make a visualization atlas that can be handed down from generation to generation." Lu Cheng exclaimed in both astonishment and admiration. Isn't that obvious? Back then, I was only one step away from entering the forbidden area. Geyser's eyes were filled with pride. Lu Cheng didn't hide his admiration, and reached out to take the atlas. As soon as he held it, he felt that the paper that carried the visualization of Ice Spirit Force was so light that it seemed weightless. It was like the emptiness of nothingness that couldn't even retain a trace of heat. All that was left was absolute and eternal coldness, darkness, and loneliness. At this moment, Lu Cheng's thoughts seemed to have drifted into the boundless coldness without a trace of light. After some time, he came back to his senses and saw his master's smiling face. Ice Spirit Holy Light Atlas. Ice Spirit Holy Light Atlas. Lu Cheng nodded slightly and unfolded the atlas in his hand. He saw that it was filled with flowing, sparkling light. The light against the darkness was dreamy, beautiful, and pure, but it gave off a feeling of loneliness, darkness, and extreme coldness. Geyser smiled and said, Ice Spirit Force will be formed when the Ice Spirit Force is connected to the Ice Spirit Holy Light diagram. When the transformation is completed, the force will be close to instinct. Only the Ice Spirit Holy Light diagram is needed, which can be used together with the eruption of Dan Force. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and felt the joy of finally coming into contact with top-level martial arts. This wasn't something that could be mastered easily. It couldn't be mastered in 10 to 20 minutes like the 9 words formula. It required a certain amount of time to succeed. For this, he had to suppress the transformation of his root pulp. If he had known, he would have practiced Ice Spirit Force and Emperor Yen Force in advance. However, Master probably didn't expect him to complete the crucial breakthrough so quickly and reach the inhuman stage. Sigh. Was it because of my exaggeration that Master was unreliable? Lu Cheng repented for 2 minutes. In the next few days, he only went out to handle the procedures. Most of his free time was spent studying and comprehending the Ice Spirit Holy Light Atlas. Based on his understanding of the cold and his 2 years of experience in the ice sect, he gradually gained some insights. After settling the procedures for leaving the country, Lu Cheng finally got his hands on the Emperor Yen Atlas before the 4-nation tournament. Its charm faded quickly, the kind that wouldn't take more than 10 days. It seemed to be a little revenge from the military. This atlas was the exact opposite of the Ice Spirit Holy Light Atlas. Although it was only a piece of paper, it felt heavy when held in one's hand. It was as though countless dust particles had accumulated on it. When it finally exceeded the critical point, it collapsed and ignited everything, spewing out unimaginably hot flames. On the atlas was a drawing of a god wearing a tall crown and ancient robes. The core was a very dense mass that spread out layers of flames of different colors. They formed a ceremonial robe, majestic and terrifying. Combined with the Prairie Fire Atlas from before, he could master Emperor Yen force. Alright brat, hurry up and practice. Once you've mastered both ice and fire, you can undergo the transformation, Gizershur instructed. Gizershur reminded him. Go to Huahai tomorrow and meet up with the others at Haidong Airport. This is the contact number. Although it's an individual competition, we still have to go together as a team. Hey, if you don't go, you won't understand. The host this time was Shengxiang's capital, Fulua. Master, who else is participating? Lu Qing inquired curiously. He wondered if there was anyone he knew. Gizershur chuckled, then suddenly put on a straight face and said, I didn't ask. Lu Qing tactfully returned to his room and packed his luggage. Then he took out his phone and sent a message to Yenjika. I'm going to Huahai. Who would have thought that my first overseas trip would be to Shengxiang instead of America? The message was like a stone sinking into the ocean. It was midnight there. Lu Qing quietly watched for a few minutes, then felt a surge of longing that was hard to get rid of. After that, he contacted the other party, confirmed the details, and booked the high-speed train ticket. When it was almost night time, Yenjika woke up and said, Chung, I can't watch your match live again. Good thing we can find online resources in America. Haha, that's good. I can't understand much of my opponent's information. I'm a little unsure. Lu Qing replied humbly, but his spirits were lifted. The next day, he tried to understand Emperor Yen force, but without a doubt he didn't gain much. After breakfast, Lu Qing carried his luggage and headed to the high-speed train station. He arrived at Haidong Airport before noon. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he met the leader of this competition, Zhong Ningtao, at the departure hall. Alright, wait a few more minutes. They said they'll be here soon. Zhong Ningtao had a slicked-back hairstyle. He was of average height and had a kind smile. Okay. Lu Qing didn't rush to ask who else was there. He took out his phone and reported to his wife. Meet up. Looking forward to teammates. Just as he sent the message, he sensed something and turned to the other side. He saw a young man in a white t-shirt and casual pants walking over with his luggage. He had a clean smile and a leisurely temperament. His eyes seemed to have just returned from a long journey. It was Peng Liyun. Chapter 449. Peng Liyun. He's going as expected. It's really the king of Youth League this time. The thought flashed across Lu Cheng's mind. He raised his right hand and was about to greet him. He wanted to exchange some pleasantries about Peng Liyun's condition, but remembered that he was the one who had caused Peng Liyun's most serious injury. Greeting him was akin to taunting and mocking him. He smiled and squeezed out a word. Hi. His opponent from a few months ago had suddenly become his teammate. Hello. Peng Liyun approached and waved calmly. I thought you might come. Lu Qing laughed and said, to broaden my horizons and strengthen my foundation. After he finished speaking, he waited for Peng Liyun's response. However, all of a sudden, an inexplicable silence filled the air. Lu Qing looked over in puzzlement, only to find the refreshed and clean Peng Liyun standing there. His eyes were unfocused, as if he had gone on a mental journey in an instant. He didn't stumble at all and completely ignored Lu Qing. This is King awkward. Lu Qing, who lacked experience in interacting with others, couldn't help but laugh dryly. He turned to Zhong Ningtao and pretended to be normal. He's just like that. Don't mind him. Anyway, it's very consistent with the rumors. Zhong Ningtao shrugged his shoulders like an American and replied with a smile. I know. Hence, he wasn't in a hurry to greet him. Lu Qing was about to change the topic, and ask about the other two teammates when Peng Liyun suddenly recovered from the blackout state. He looked at Lu Qing thoughtfully and said, "I'll participate in the nationals again." Lu Qing nodded and replied with a smile, "Me too." As soon as he finished, he saw Peng Liyun sitting next to him. His eyes were wandering again. His phone is just for show. I heard that he wants to play games too. Lu Qing thought to himself. He saw the door open at the top of the nearest elevator. A young man with long hair and headphones walked out. He was also a martial artist that Lu Qing knew, and Chaoyang, who had joined the Shanghai Club and was personally taught by the Queen of Thought. And Chaoyang glanced at them and said with a surprised smile, "You're not going for a competition, right? You're going to challenge them." The two real heavenly sons of China were going for a competition together. Before Lu Qing could answer, Zhong Ningtao, who was sitting on the other side of him, said with a smile, "That's good, that's good. That's why they dared to give us wild cards. Otherwise, why didn't they invite us in the past few years? The Japanese are so prideful. If they don't have any confidence, they'd rather play by themselves behind closed doors. Why would they take the initiative to find someone to ruin their business?" "Are there any experts over there?" Lu Qing asked curiously. He had investigated the situation of the martial artists in Japan, Shengxiang, and other countries. However, due to the language barrier, he could only look at a few external websites. His understanding was quite superficial, and he could only have a general impression. Zhong Ningtao said with a smile, "Strong is only relative. This competition is open to anyone under the age of 23. It's normal for every country to have one or two inhuman geniuses, but in terms of age and potential, they can't compare to you. We've been keeping an eye on them and collecting information. I've already sorted it out, and we'll send it to you when we arrive at Fulua." "Okay." And Chaoyang nodded calmly. After joining the Shanghai Club, under the personal tutelage of the Queen of Thought, he had made rapid progress. He felt confident that he would be able to break through to the inhuman stage in the next year, which was before he was 23 years old. Therefore, he did not have any psychological trauma when encountering such an enemy. Lu Cheng's blood was boiling with excitement. He couldn't wait to experience the martial arts of other countries and spar with their geniuses. Moreover, due to communication issues, it would be difficult to understand each other in this competition like in China. There would be more surprises and surprises. Well, if the information provided by the leader wasn't detailed enough, he could ask Unparalleled Dragon King in the group later to see if he had more information. Sounds interesting. Peng Liyun had come back from his days at some point, and said with interest. Hearing his words, Lu Qing couldn't help but complain to himself. Could this guy be a cyborg? He's in power-saving mode when he's not fighting or learning. Well, it's very possible. They weren't familiar with each other, and they weren't extroverted like Kai Zhongming. After chatting for a few minutes, Peng Liyun went back to daydreaming. And Chaoyang put on his headphones and focused on enjoying the music. Lu Cheng and the leader, Zhong Ningtao, were left looking at each other. Luckily, Lu Cheng was someone who had been influenced by Talker for a long time. He didn't let the atmosphere become awkward. After waiting for a while, the fourth member still didn't appear. Zhong Ningtao stood up and looked around. He didn't find anything. Should I call and ask? "Oh right, who is it?" Lu Qing finally asked the question that he had forgotten. "You guys know each other, Renli." Zhong Ningtao took out his phone and wondered if he should urge the genius girl. "Renli? This is really the strongest team." Lu Qing was shocked. He thought that Renli, who had almost completed her transformation, would focus on stabilizing herself and wouldn't join in the fun. Who knew that she would join in? Well, the inhuman stage belonged to the internal division of the Dan stage. The martial arts they practiced were not much different from when they were at 6th pin. Renli had already mastered what she needed to master. As for what she hadn't mastered, she wouldn't be able to master in such a short time. Just like himself, he had already mastered all the martial arts below physical invulnerability of the Ice Sect. Even though there were more than 100 Dan stage kung fu styles, there were only 20 to 30 styles that were actually needed to be practiced. The rest were all created by predecessors and improved upon. Furthermore, the improved versions were re-recorded as new styles. That was why there were so many kung fu styles. For example, the 26th style of the ice sect, ice burning, was an improved version of the 112th style, snow burning, and was placed at the top of the list when the kung fu was rewritten. Renli. And Chaoyang took off his headphones. He was surprised and amused. Leader, you should give her a call. Otherwise, we won't be able to wait. As one of Renli's old rivals, he knew her better than Lu Cheng and Zhong Ningtao. On the other side, Peng Liyun had also come back to his senses. He nodded in agreement. All right. Zhong Ningtao dialed the number. After a few seconds, he heard Renli's voice. Hello. Hello, Renli. I'm Zhong Ningtao, your leader. I contacted you 2 days ago. Where are you now? After introducing himself, Zhong Ningtao went straight to the point. After a moment of silence, a calm voice came from the phone. Leader, I think I'm lost. Lost? Zhong Ningtao was dumbfounded. He almost forgot to think. After a few seconds, he said hurriedly, hurry up and ask the people next to you to confirm your current location. He knew that Renli had a bad sense of direction, but he didn't expect her to be this bad. After a moment, Renli answered without any anxiety or anger. They said I'm in T2. They said. Zhong Ningtao's mouth twitched. He hurriedly said, we're in T1. Hurry up and come over. Don't know. And Chaoyang and Peng Liyun tried to stop her. Only Lu Cheng was stunned. Was Renli's sense of direction terminal? Ha! Zhong Ningtao turned around blankly and looked at the two who spoke. Leader, you should go and pick her up. Otherwise, she might have left the airport. And Chaoyang smiled helplessly. Having a bad sense of direction wasn't scary. It was knowing that they had a bad sense of direction, but they were confident and took the initiative to lead the way. Unfortunately, Renli belonged to the latter. Okay. Zhong Ningtao was speechless. He asked Renli to ask for her current location and search for her. After about 20 minutes, Lu Cheng and the others finally saw Renli in an orange t-shirt and denim shorts. Hello. The delicate doll-like girl nodded politely. Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun and Chaoyang looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. They then greeted her back. Lu Cheng took the opportunity and sent a message to Yan Zheka with a proud expression. My teammates this time are Peng Liyun, Renli and Chaoyang. The strongest heavenly team. At this time it was still midnight in America. Once everyone had gathered, they used their passports to get their tickets and queued up to go through the security check. They waited for half an hour in the VIP lounge before boarding the plane. Since they were in the first class, they were the first to enter. Then Lu Cheng saw Renli dragging her suitcase and staring straight ahead. She didn't look back and didn't even look at the seat number beside her. Heh. He twitched his mouth and reminded her. Renli here. As Lu Cheng spoke, Peng Liyun and Chaoyang and Zhong Ningtao also stopped her. Renli stopped and looked at where they were pointing. She showed an embarrassed expression and ran back with small steps to put her luggage in the seat above. After she sat down, Lu Cheng glanced at the terminally ill young lady. He then looked at Chaoyang, who was wearing headphones and had entered his own world, and Peng Liyun, who was sitting on his left. He didn't know what he was thinking, but he completely ignored the stewardess greetings. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. Damn it, I can't be the only normal person in this heavenly team, right? These three guys don't seem reliable no matter how I look at them. Thinking of this, he picked up his phone and complained to his wife. At this moment, Yan Zheka suddenly popped up and replied, Hey! Haha, Brother Cheng, you can do it. Pfft, why are you awake? Don't delay your classes tomorrow. Lu Cheng replied happily. Can't I wake up in the middle of the night? Yan Zheka replied. The two of them immediately started chatting happily. After a few minutes, Peng Liyun, Renli and Chaoyang all looked at Lu Cheng, who was smiling and playing with his phone. They all had the same expression that Lu Cheng had when he looked at them just now. After successfully arriving at Fulua, the capital of Shengxiang, Lu Cheng and the others got on the bus and arrived at the hotel. After checking in, Renli took the lead and led the way to the restaurant. She was grabbed by the leader, Zhong Ningtao. The consequence of Zhong Ningtao grabbing her shoulder was that she used absolute reaction and threw him to the ground. While Lu Cheng was mourning for him, on the other side of the hotel lobby, Two men who looked like Japanese were observing them and comparing them to the photos on their phones. "They are the strongest ones," said one of the Japanese men in a low voice. Chapter 450. I'm sorry. After throwing Zhong Ningtao to the ground with a suplex, Runli came back to her senses. She clasped her hands together and apologized repeatedly. Luckily, she wasn't the kind of person who would go all out and hold back her strength. Otherwise, with their skills, Zhong Ningtao would have broken a few bones. At this moment, he only felt a little dizzy. Rubbing his sore spots, he got up slowly and forced a smile. "It's nothing. I've been through a lot too." "Oh my, this girl looks so harmless, but she's actually so scary." Lu Qing leaned over and glanced at the opposite side of the hall from the corner of his eye. He lowered his voice and said, "Leader, there seem to be two Japanese looking at us." In the eyes of other countries, Chinese and Japanese were very similar and hard to differentiate. Single eyelids and short stature weren't important labels. However, to the two countries, they were easy to distinguish. It was as though there was a distinct feeling between them. "Haha, it's nothing. They like to collect information like this," explained Zhong Ningtao. "They are very serious in their work, but also very rigid. Our situation was reported to the organizing committee in the morning. Shengxiang's people didn't even come to confirm it, but they did." After a few words, he looked at the watch on his wrist and said, "There's no time difference. It's 6:30 now. Go back to your room and rest for a while. We'll gather here at 7 and go out to find food. We don't have anything to do for the next few days, so we can relax and have fun while waiting for the competition to start." "Oh right. What do you want to eat? Any suggestions?" "Anything," Peng Liyun answered casually. His gaze swept across the golden Buddha statues in the hotel, and he fell into deep thought. "Anything is fine." And Chaoyang pulled a suitcase with one hand and put the other in his pocket. With his headphones on, he leisurely observed the exotic guests coming and going. "I'm not a picky eater really." Runli caught on to the main point. Zhong Ningtao looked at Lu Qing sadly, and was delighted to see him take out his phone and open the review app. "Leader, I'll look around and see if there's any good food nearby. We can discuss it later. When traveling, you can't let down good food. Anyway, Ku and I are the kind of bored tourists who value each other more than good food more than local customs, and local customs more than beautiful scenery. Okay, add me on WeChat." Zhong Ningtao was very touched. Most of the time, Lu Cheng's WeChat was just for show, but recently the non-students he knew seemed to like it more, so he gradually got used to it. He even started to feel that it was quieter and quieter, so he wanted Ku to use it more often. After scanning the QR code, they escorted Runli into the elevator. They didn't leave until they saw her enter the apartment. Lu Qing put down his luggage, sat by the bed, and browsed through the delicacies around him. After a few minutes of discussion with the team leader, they decided on a Shengxiang cuisine. After doing all this, he found that Zhong Ningtao had already sent the opponent's information to his mailbox. He downloaded it and browsed it. Kaori Karasawa, 22 years old. Successor of the Shinzai sect in Japan. 6th Dan black belt, equivalent to a 5th pin in China. Developed Qi at the end of last year, equivalent to the inhuman stage. Hailed as a beautiful girl genius that appears once every 3,000 years in Japan. However, they always like to exaggerate. Compared to Peng Liyun at the same age, she's still lacking. There were many sects in Japanese martial arts. Under the auspices of the country, the white belt represented amateurs, while the black belt represented samurai. 9th Dan was the highest, and 1st Dan was the lowest. Among them, 8th Dan and 9th Dan were equivalent to the top 3 ranks in China. At the end of last year, 21.5 years old, almost at the inhuman stage. What a formidable opponent. Lu Qing thought as he continued scrolling. He saw Kaori Karasawa's photo and the introduction of the Shinzai sect. She was indeed a pretty girl. She wasn't very tall, just a little over 1.6 meters. She had baby fat on her face, round and adorable. Lu Qing scanned through and looked to the back. Muko Yamashita, almost 24 years old. founder of the extreme Hadu sect in Japan. 5th Dan Black Belt. Developed Hadu in May, equivalent to the inhuman stage. This was a tall man with long arms. He had thick eyebrows, rugged looks and shocking muscles. Waku, a direct disciple of Xinjiang country's Theravada Buddhism. An ascetic monk with the title of Arhat. At the age of 23, he has already mastered the 16 insight wisdom, to the walking insight wisdom, which is equivalent to the inhuman stage. Vagar, son of Miluo's warlord, possesses the supernatural ability of thunder and lightning, cultivates Miluo's martial arts and is extremely domineering. 23.5 years old. As Miluo doesn't have a standard evaluation system, his strength can only be said to be on par with Kaori Karasawa. He is one of the 2 most likely to win this competition. Banam, representative of Nanjing. At such a young age, he is already the sect leader of Jahi Quan. Vicious in his attacks, ruthless to others and even more ruthless to himself. Their martial arts path is similar to our country's. He has just broken through to the inhuman stage, 22 years old. Xinjiang, Miluo and Nanjing are close to war-torn areas. The political situation in the country is often unstable. One has a king, one is a warlord, and one is a military government. Therefore, the status of women in the country is lower, and it isn't easy for them to practice martial arts. Lu Qing swiped his finger and flipped through the pages quickly. He remembered the looks of the 3 of them. Waku was sallow and skinny. He was barefooted and wore a red robe. He didn't seem to be any different from most of the ascetic monks. However, his eyes were deep and dark, as though they were hiding a pure land of self. Vagar was wearing a blue general's uniform. He was tall and strong with a cold face. Banam was less than 1.7 meters tall. His skin was tanned and as strong as steel. His wrists and legs were wrapped in white bandages. Other than the 5 of them, Zhong Ningtao also listed a few martial artists with potential from the 4 countries. Lu Qing took a quick glance and took his phone with international data package. He pocketed his wallet and took the elevator back to the 1st floor. He waited in the lobby for his teammates to meet up. This time, Zhong Ningtao didn't make any mistakes. He knocked on Run Li's door and let her down personally. He didn't want this young lady to get lost in the sea of people in the hotel again. Let's eat here. Zhong Ningtao showed Peng Liyun and the rest the name of the restaurant that he and Lu Qing had decided on. Okay. And Chao Yang and the rest went with the flow and didn't have any objections. When they were about to leave the hotel, Lu Qing couldn't help but ask when he saw the tanned, short, and skinny Xinjiang people outside. Leader, do you speak Xinjiang language? Zhong Ningtao looked at him, then at Peng Liyun, Run Li, and in Chao Yang who had the same question. He gave a look that said, "How can you ask such a childish question?" "I don't know. Don't know. Lu Qing, who originally thought that he and the leader were the most reliable in the team, was dumbfounded. Even the usually calm Ren Li and Peng Liyun were stunned for a moment. Haha, don't know, don't worry. Everyone here more or less knows English. I'm a professional. Zhong Ningtao wiped his swept-back hair and smiled proudly. Look, didn't I arrange everything properly when we took a taxi to check in? That's true. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief, and Chao Yang pondered for a few seconds, then suddenly opened his mouth and asked directly, Leader, you've been to Xinjiang before, right? Zhong Ningtao gave a dry laugh and answered sincerely, Nope. Then he added, Don't worry. I'm on good terms with the people in the embassy here. That's why they sent me here. Oh. Lu Qing, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and Chao Yang looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. This might be a little unreliable. Why don't we just stay in the hotel and eat instant noodles? Under Zhong Ningtao's persuasion, and because they were skilled and bold, they continued on their journey. Following the navigation on the map, they found a restaurant about 700 meters away that had a rich Xinjiang atmosphere. The architecture here was influenced by Buddhist aesthetics. There were many sculptures, and they liked to paint. It was quite unique. Click, click, click. Lu Qing took out his phone and took a few pictures. He sent them to Yen Zhika, hoping that she would feel what he felt when she woke up. Click, click, click. Renli was also taking pictures. Half of it was the scenery, and the other half was a selfie. After a while, she was about to leave the restaurant in the opposite direction and fly away. Luckily, Peng Liyun noticed in time and stopped her. Click, click, click. And Chaoyang held the digital camera and focused on it as if he was sculpting a piece of art. Why aren't you taking pictures? Zhong Mingtao leaned towards Peng Liyun curiously. Then he realized something and said, "That's right. Someone with a carefree personality like you wouldn't like to take pictures. He would rather be in a daze." Peng Liyun tilted his head and looked at him. He said calmly, "The camera is broken." Zhong Mingtao's mouth twitched. He decided to talk to Lu Cheng. He had just taken 2 steps when he saw Lu Cheng turn around and smile at Chaoyang, who had just finished taking pictures. "Can you share some pictures with me later? I didn't take very good pictures." "You didn't take very good pictures? Then why did you take so many pictures just now?" Zhong Mingtao took a deep breath and walked to the restaurant. With his fluent English, he managed to get a table for 6. Lu Cheng sat down, picked up the menu and opened it. He was surprised to find a Chinese translation. So considerate. And Chaoyang sat sincerely beside him. There were many people around and the environment was very noisy. "At least a third of the tourists here are from our country. How can we not have a Chinese menu?" Zhong Mingtao said with a smile. He waved his hand to the waiter and started to order. Halfway through the order, the petite girl with brown skin suddenly said a lot of things. Lu Cheng and the others looked at each other. "Can you speak English?" Zhong Mingtao asked in English. The waiter nodded and said a lot more. Lu Cheng felt that with his hearing, he could only understand a few words. "Leader, what does he mean?" Renli pulled Zhong Mingtao and asked in a low voice out of habit. Zhong Mingtao replied in English with a confused face. "I don't understand. This waiter's English accent is too strong. It's too local. I'm dumbfounded. Let me try." Good student Peng Liyun started to use English. However, after a while of gesticulating, he still failed to communicate. And Chaoyang and Renli were eager to give it a try. They both used exam-oriented English to try to help, but they all failed miserably. As their last hope, Lu Cheng took a deep breath and planned to show the oral English he had practiced for Ke. After a while, the waiter was at a loss. Just as they were about to use the translation software, the girl asked timidly, "Do you speak Chinese?" Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun and the others all understood this sentence. They were stunned for a while before they blurted out, "You speak Chinese?" "Yes, my father is Chinese. There are a lot of Chinese tourists here. Staff who speak Chinese are very popular." The girl smiled and answered, feeling a little awkward. Lu Cheng, Renli, Peng Liyun, and Chaoyang and Zhong Mingtao, who were sweating from ordering food, looked at each other and suddenly burst into laughter. Their bodies were shaking nonstop, and they were about to cry. They suddenly felt that the unfamiliarity and isolation between them had disappeared. Chapter 451. After laughing for a while, Zhong Mingtao picked up the menu again and ordered in Chinese according to the speed of their conversation. The petite waitress listened with a blank face. In the end, she smiled embarrassedly and said, Can you slow down? Too fast, too fast. I don't understand." Her Chinese expression was rather shaky. "Okay." Lu Cheng and the rest laughed. Zhong Mingtao slowed down his speech and described the dishes word by word. This time, the conversation was very smooth. Everyone understood what the waitress was trying to say. She thought that the customers had ordered too much and some dishes were not special, so there was no need to waste their appetite. But for Lu Cheng and the rest, this was not a problem. They would only complain about too little, but not too much. Hence, they happily reached an agreement. Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun, Renli and Chaoyang and Zhong Mingtao looked at each other and laughed at the same time when the brown-skinned waitress put away the menu, took notes and turned to leave. It's not easy to order in a foreign country. There were many customers in this restaurant, but the food was served quickly. Plates were placed in front of Lu Cheng and the rest. No need to wait. Let's eat first. If we eat one plate, we won't be able to fit another plate. Zhong Ningtao glanced at the crowded table and picked up his chopsticks. Okay. Lu Cheng, Ren Li and Chaoyang replied in unison. They unlocked their phones and aimed at the delicious food. We need to consecrate our food. Peng Liyun's chopsticks hovered for a moment. Just when Zhong Ningtao thought he was going to be the first to taste the food after the photo shoot, he smiled casually. Let's add each other on QQ or WeChat later. Huh. The rest were stunned. Remember to send me some photos. Peng Liyun looked straight ahead and replied with a smile. Compared to before, he was obviously more willing to talk and communicate. Let's just steal the photos. I'll post it, share it on WeChat and Weibo. And Chaoyang suggested seriously. Peng Liyun picked up the ice water and drank a mouthful. He cleared his throat and said, Actually, that's what I used to do. But they were not familiar with each other, so he felt a little embarrassed. Apart from her tendency to daydream and lazy personality, the big devil is quite easy to get along with. Lu Qing laughed to himself, lowered his head, and sent the photos of the food to Yenjika. He imitated her tone and said, I'm helping you to improve your appetite for breakfast. We're husband and wife, so you're welcome. Shengxiang's dishes were mostly lemon sour, with a wide range of sweet, sour, and spicy flavors. Their grilled fish and other delicacies were cooked with spices and leaves that were rarely seen in Lu Cheng and the rest. The first bite was strange, but after a few more bites, it seemed to be all right and had a unique style. The four big eaters and Zhong Ningtao, who had a huge appetite, had refreshed the waiter's view of the world after just one meal. In the past, they had met people with appetites comparable to Peng Liyun and Ren Li, but they had never seen so many people gathered together at one table. In the end, the chefs, who felt that their culinary skills had been greatly affirmed, came to the front hall and sincerely greeted Lu Cheng and the rest. They also invited them to take photos as souvenirs. After paying the bill with his card, Zhong Ningtao remembered something. He opened his black briefcase and took out a few stacks of notes. Here's the Shengxiang shield. 30,000 per person. This is for your daily expenses. You can swipe your UnionPay card at most places, and there's a discount. 1 yuan in China could be exchanged for a little over 7 Shengxiang shields. Lu Qing took the money and looked at the colorful notes. Then he heard Zhong Ningtao say, You can go around here. This is a more prosperous area in Fuluo. Renli, you have to follow them, no follow me. You can't go alone. Also, you have morning exercises tomorrow, right? There's a quiet place on the left of the hotel. Renli, what time do you usually wake up? About 5:30. Renli volunteered. Leader, it's okay. I won't get lost during morning exercises. Zhong Ningtao looked at her deeply and said, I'll wake up at 5:30 as well. Before Renli could insist, he continued, There's a Shengxiang martial arts school nearby. Do you want me to book all the time in the morning? Yes. Lu Qing answered without hesitation. Peng Liyun, Ren Li and Chaoyang also said in unison, their eyes shining with anticipation. You guys are really? Zhong Ningtao couldn't help but laugh. What a good kid focused on martial arts. They took a stroll and walked in a circle. Under the bright night sky, they found the hotel they were staying at and returned to their own rooms to do their own things. Lu Qing glanced at his phone. Seeing that Ka hadn't replied, he put it down slowly and turned on his computer. Using the information provided by Zhong Ningtao, he found the corresponding website and started watching the match videos of Kaori Karasawa, Vagar and other opponents. After skimming through, he found that the highlights weren't detailed enough. He unlocked his phone and found Unparalleled Dragon King in the group chat. He opened the chat box and typed, Old Dragon, are you there? Just say what you want, no need to ask if I'm there, replied Unparalleled Dragon King. Lu Qing scratched his head and said, Do you have detailed information on Kaori Karasawa, Muko Yamashita, Waku Vagar and Banam? Damn, you want to watch the King of Youth League? You know about this? Replied Unparalleled Dragon King with a shocked expression. Is it strange to know? Replied Lu Qing with a confused expression. Strange, very strange. Replied Unparalleled Dragon King with a thumbs up. Our country's martial arts is too strong and the competition is fierce. After I return to China, I found that other than the international arena and professional competitions of a few big countries, everyone rarely pays attention to foreign martial arts and fighting. I didn't expect us to have a common interest. Haha, I just happened to be here. Lu Qing smiled through tears and admitted that he was just one of the big shots, in an attempt to dispel Unparalleled Dragon King's unnecessary excitement. Oh, you're in Fulua? Asked Unparalleled Dragon King with a sudden realization. He subconsciously thought that Schrodinger's tiger was traveling with his girlfriend after meeting her parents. On the way, he found out about the King of Youth League and wanted to take a look. Yes, replied Lu Qing without hiding anything. Not bad. If I didn't prefer to stay at home, I would have flown to Fulua, replied Unparalleled Dragon King. Unparalleled Dragon King replied. Laughing expression. All right, I'll send you a copy of the videos of those guys later. It's definitely better than what you can find yourself. If there's any behind-the-scenes footage or any details of the competition, you have to let me know immediately. Some of the matches can't be found. No problem, replied Lu Qing with a wave. By the way, it seems like 4 wild cards were sent to our country this time. Did you see any mention of our 4 fighters on the posters and the pre-match program? Unparalleled Dragon King asked excitedly. Hey, you're right to ask me. Lu Qing replied with a snickering expression. I know Peng Liyun, Run Li Lu Qing and En Chaoyang. F***CK they're not giving Shengxiang and the other countries a chance to survive. Why are they so confident in giving wild cards? Asked Unparalleled Dragon King in surprise. He thought it was good enough to have a heavenly son of the era leading the team. I'm not sure about that. I also want to know why, replied Lu Qing with a shrug. Unparalleled Dragon King sent an excited expression. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the King of Youth League more and more. No, I have to tell little Changye and little Fan. Let's talk more during this time. Sure, talk to you later. Lu Qing saw Yenjika's reply. Sending delicious food early in the morning. Qing, the boat of our friendship has capsized, said Yenjika. So I fell into the river of love? Raised eyebrows and smirked expression. Who are you? I don't know you, replied Yenjika. After flirting for a few minutes, Lu Qing started to talk about Peng Liyun and the others, completely unaware of what he was doing. I didn't expect them to be so easy to get along with. Speaking of this, Yenjika sent an emoji of covering her mouth and laughing. Chung, you've joined the national team. Yes, the national team under the age of 24. When some of the international team challenge tournaments were held, countries would form teams to participate. Of course, you could also form your own team. Time flew by as they chatted and laughed. Lu Qing said goodnight reluctantly and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, he found the place the leader had told him about, and saw Peng Liyun and En Chaoyang. He also saw Ren Li and Zhong Ningtao who were late. After greeting each other, they each found a place to train. Lu Qing continued to cultivate Ice Spirit Force and Emperor Yen Force, and made slight progress. After training and breakfast, they went to the Shengxiang boxing gym booked by Zhong Ningtao and started to train. Peng Liyun thought for a while and said, Why don't we spar later? I can imitate Vagar's fighting style. He had seen the related videos. I'll try Xinjai Sect and Zahi boxing, said Ren Li. I'll imitate Waku, said En Chaoyang. Lu Qing was at a loss at first, then came to a realization. He smiled and said, Then I can only work hard to be Muko Yamashita. This was the benefit of having strong teammates. Everyone could imitate opponents with different styles according to their own characteristics to increase the corresponding experience. After practicing for a while, Peng Liyun walked to the center of the gym. He swung his fists and legs a few times, creating electric sparks. Then he looked at Lu Qing, Ren Li and En Chaoyang. He waved and smiled. Who's next? Just as the 4 wild cards were training hard, the round-faced Kaori Karasawa and the thick-browed Muko Yamashita were also watching the competition videos of Lu Qing, Peng Liyun and the others. Not only them, but Vagar, Waku and Banam were also seriously studying the related videos in their spare time. Time flew. A few nights later, the King of Youth tournament officially kicked off. The 24 advanced martial artists, the 8 seeded fighters and the 4 wild cards would draw lots and fight each other. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.